Hello and welcome to Jason Cabinet Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cabinets. Our guest today is René Capella. René, you ready to be great today?
Yeah.
René, who's originally from Cincinnati, is a coal miner's granddaughter. If you've seen or read Hilbilly Eligy, you know the context of her youth. She studied philosophy at Miami University for 3 years, but it was not a career goal for her, which is probably why she didn't stick around with it. But she does love learning. And she Googled the most educated city in the United States and found Seattle. And she's been here since 2011. Spent a few years growing her family and managing restaurants. In 2017, she decided to BootCamp at Journal Assembly, and that's where her tech career began as a software engineer and other items in tech. So René, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So René, first thing, talk about the experience of moving from Ohio to Seattle. That's the difference. There's a different culture, right?
Yeah, the actual experience itself was really neat because it was so impromptu. Like literal Google, literal Seattle popped up, book ticket, and I flew out for 2 weeks and hung out here. And I was completely blown away by the mountains and the greenery. I can imagine the goofiness that the Uber driver experienced when I got in the car, because I remember being like glued to that window in the back seat. Like, wow. In Ohio, it's big skies and sometimes cornfields and lots of urban sprawl. So plus one for Seattle.
So René, talk about your love for learning. I mean, because I think this one, a lot of people don't have the love for learning now, right? They just like do what they're told, learn like math, learn this, but you actually have a love for learning. You learn a lot of stuff, right? Talk about that.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, learning is kind of learning about yourself. And I think that I've always had a deep desire to kind of understand myself better so I can prepare better for the world around me. But like when you start learning and you realize you let go of being like a perfectionist, the moment that you see a new blob of information, you can dive into it and make sense out of it, map your world onto it, make interesting introspectives about yourself, about the world you're in. There's something delicious about that. That's probably why I love philosophy so much. You dig into these weird questions and they're all so vastly different. And you try to apply it to the world around you. It makes life interesting. Better.
So from your point of view, what's the purpose of college? Is it like learn something or to find a job? That's a big thing. So it's like, no, I'm making these numbers up, but like last 40 years, the college costs have increased like 10,000%, so like, is it really worth the money anymore?
Mm-hmm. First and foremost, like find scholarships and find funding for anybody who wants to go back to college. I think that's the only reason I'm back in school is because I have scholarships. I can't imagine taking on the debt that individuals have taken on. But for me, when I initially went, it was for love. It was for exploration. It was anthropology and philosophy and all these amazing things. And I kind of felt like that was the conveyor belt. That's where you went. But I didn't have a goal in mind. And I didn't understand my world yet because I was still young. Our brains are still forming. And so now I see it as a tool. I see it as a tool in order to kind of learn very specifically what I need to learn in order to be good at the role that I'm aiming for. And then, graduate and have that accreditation next to you to say, hey, I can do this. So I think from like a strategic point of view, do it for a career. But if you're going to do it for a career, make sure it's something that you can do well. Don't just.
Yeah. I'm not, a lot of people shit on college, no, don't get me wrong. If you're going to get a bachelor's degree and I don't know, some liberal arts thing, $150,000 in debt, yeah. Get a $30,000 job. No, but I mean, I think there's some goodness, like the social networks you build, the people you meet. Mm-hmm. I think you gotta be smart. I think what a lot of people mess up too is like, do you have to go to like a 4-year private school at the part? Maybe go to a 2-year junior college, right? And save some money, right? Like you say, need scholarships and all that kind of stuff.
About the networking. So I've taken a break, right? I had the career and then I've taken a break back at school and then I'm gonna have a career afterwards. This break has been amazing. I've been able to, that networking piece specifically, just being able to say, I'm free. I don't have to work 8 hours a day. I don't have to commute. I don't have to go anywhere. I have freedom to talk to whomever I would like to go wherever I want to learn these things. It's like being a part of the Google Developer Student Club. We've made 150 different events that have been 25 of which have been broadcasted across the globe. That's crazy. I've met so many interesting people. My life will have such different trajectories because of this space that I've been afforded.
What's it like going back to college and not being like an 18-year-old no more?
Yeah, it's weird.
What's that like?
It's weird. So I learned, this is an interesting, so I run a Discord, which, and I love it. I think I've spent most of my last 2 years on the Discord. We got it from 100 to 400 people, and you have to learn how to engage, right? But most of the people in our Discord are like in their 20s, and they text differently than we do. They don't use punctuation always. And if you do use punctuation, it's like a thing, it's an emotion. So I found I initially was using, you know, all of it, exclamation points, I was using periods, I was block texting, making sure everything was grammatically awesome because I wanted to convey that I knew what I was talking about. And I slowly learned that the smartest folks in the room were the folks who they had made mistakes and they didn't have punctuation and they never capitalized things unless it was meaningful. And there's something about that that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm going to say what grammar is going to look like maybe 10, 15 years from now, right? They know a course in a grammar book 20 years from now, the proper use of emojis or something like that, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Or like white space. White space conveys so much information, you know?
Like, and all that's happened organically, right? No one told me to do it. There's no class. This has happened naturally across the whole world.
I did find that when I started kind of emulating this way of communicating in virtual space, that people liked it more. They were friendlier. They wanted to engage more. And I think I don't know what it is. I guess it's like you see more friendly or something, but it's cool. That's been fun. So that's what it's kind of been like. It's been a lot of like adjustments. It's been a lot of pointing out ageism because it's there. Sometimes people will talk about like, all like these old folks, like old folk here, hey. And trying to communicate that like, yeah, we have things that we need to learn to teach us. Starting this conversation.
So talk about your experience like managing restaurants. Like which restaurants do you manage and how do you get into that?
Yeah. So I ended up, when I was studying philosophy, I was bartending a lot. It seems appropriate, right? Because you talk a lot and you get to have good conversations over beers. But the first place was called the Fox and the Hound, and they had like 36 beers on tap, right? And we had crazy nights where people would come in and everybody would be dancing and absurd beer tastings. It was fun. It was electric. It was a way to get to know people quickly and fastly. It was kind of an adrenaline rush. It was a really fun way to explore human nature. But then,
yeah, I have to imagine like meet different people every day, great people. But I'm sure there's like sprinkling like an asshole in there every once in a while, right?
Yeah, no, but like that's the human nature part. So the other day, there was a person. They had been drinking. They were working on their car. They were spitting out profanity all over the place. And I was like, I got this. Like I went out, I was like, hey man, what's going on? Let me talk about it. And like, they're just talking about this weird car part. And those are all skills that I learned in that space. You can diffuse almost anything when you've worked at a bar, right? So you know how to de-escalate.
So let's talk about philosophy. So philosophy, I remember I took a philosophy class when I was a freshman in college.
Ooh.
And to this day, it remains my favorite class, right? Of all the stuff I did in college or school, my philosophy final test is the only thing I still have left. On the first day, the professor walked in, he said, looked at us all, said, fuck. And we're like, what? He's like, what do you think of that word? Bad, good? We'd like to discuss on that, right? It just the discussions, you know, what if, this and that. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, they always say, you know, you need math, you need this, you need tech, you need cooking, ball on. But I'm a firm believer that it was to take a philosophy class just to teach you how to think.
Mm-hmm. And it does, doesn't it? It teaches you to like question who you are, which is what I love about it. So every day that I wake up and I have an assertion, like, I mean, you take any political question, there's a lot of them going on right now. To sit back and think, and I'll wait, let me break it down and like really think about how I actually feel about this. And it changes. You'll find it changes like every month, every year. So being able to revisit that also helps you like in businesses. It helps you being on a team to step back and be like, wait, are we just like full of ourselves? Mm-hmm. Or is this like actually a good decision? You know? Yeah,
there's so many philosophers out there, you know, from the 1400s to now. It's like who do you follow? Who's good? Like, what's the name of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius?
Yeah.
The Stoicism, you know, like crazy. Like he lived like so far long ago, right? And we still read his stuff, you know.
We do. It's a lot of dead white guys.
Yeah.
That's like a big thing. There's a lot of feminist philosophy that's looking at how we can see the world through a different lens if the feminine perspective was considered. And it's fascinating. It's like a whole new chapter to a whole new book, right?
So who are some women philosophers?
Yeah, Donna Haraway, Luce Irigaray, just to name a few. Wendy Brown. Luz Ergrai is really interesting for her work on.
So in a
gender.
question, are these people still alive, or they're like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, and I might be wrong about Donna Haraway, but they don't always just talk about feminism. They talk about all kinds of things. My favorite is not a woman; she's actually Nietzsche. Nietzsche
Okay.
has some interesting opinions. Some feminists would argue
He's the one who
misogynist.
did the God is dead thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Society killed God.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And I think that Nietzsche's one of those philosophers you can take at face value and you can be like, wow, he said what? Or you could step back and try to understand, like, what was he critiquing about the world that we live in? And that's why.
So you had to pick one philosopher to meet in person to be him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Hands down.
Well, because it carries so much weight in a day-to-day life. Nietzsche had this idea. You take a hammer, you can break down, let's pretend your constructs, your reality, your identity is this giant ice castle. So you can go in and you can break it with this hammer into bits. You're going to have a big mess around you of constructs because you can't escape them. You can't get rid of them. So you take those pieces and you rebuild your reality. And I feel like that's what we're doing endlessly. We are just rebuilding our identity, our world around us, our brands, all these things.
Here's one for you. I don't think people think of enough. Think of how many experiments human race had to do to get here, right? Like how many people had to get bitten by a rattlesnake before they realized, okay, maybe I don't want to pick a rattlesnake, or how many people had to eat poisonous mushrooms, or, how many experiences had to be, maybe you don't want to go outside in, Alaska with no clothes on, so I'm like, how many people died to get us where we're at, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a big science experiment, right?
Yeah, yeah. And thank you to all of the humans who have come before us to try that out. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what's your take on ethics in tech? I know you're big on that, ethics in tech, especially now with the, hashtag Coinbase, hashtag all the layers going on, like overhiring, just all that kind of mess.
Well, there's a couple different rounds, right? There's hiring and there's the experience, the developer experience, the engineer experience in tech. There's businesses and capitalistic angle, what's good for business versus what's good for society. I really appreciate Tristan Harris. He's the one who, I can't remember the name of the documentary. It really escapes me. It was on Netflix and it was the one of the social dilemma, maybe. And what it was, it concerned social media and kind of the death scroll. Maybe conducive to well-being.
Yeah, definitely. So how do we get better at ethics in tech?
Yeah. I think that, so have you heard of the Center for Humane Technology?
I want to say I'd have.
Yeah. So they have this really cool free course. Individuals should go take that. But I think the perspective that we try to take, right, is you and I have heuristics. You and I have shortcuts that we make every day. We see something delicious and sweet in front of us and we're like, yes, I want to eat this. Companies know that and they advertise for that. Companies know that when you're endlessly scrolling on your social media, you're not going to stop. That's why TikTok, those videos on TikTok where people are like, it's time to maybe call it a day, is so good. I love those. But anyway, the scroll happens. So the Center for Humane Technology says, look, we need to know what those are. And we need to have a protocol that says we don't exploit that in human beings. We want to promote attention spans and thinking. And I think it's just understanding those heuristics, creating a protocol to avoid exploiting them is like the first best step we can take.
Next, I want to talk about your GitHub. So your GitHub has been the most creative I've ever seen, right? I look at GitHub all the time. They're like plain, black and white, boring. Yours is like this outstanding, right? I mean, it's just, yeah. Talk about why be creative on the GitHub and how that came about.
I think it's important to communicate who you are in all spaces. And GitHub is like our main. So developers have this, I think there's like a narrative that we're in a basement somewhere, with like tied up to Mountain Dew or coffee or something. And that's not the case. It's a social field. It needs to be more social. And we need to be able to communicate who we are and communicate that clearly and well. So there's been a lot of workshops that I've gone to where I learned about that little hidden profile. And I've done a couple events on it. I encourage people to advertise themselves. It's the best way. It's like you visited that and you got to see a side of my personality, which I think is what it's like to be on a team. You would be look at me and be like, I don't know about René. I don't know. She seems a little outgoing. Or you would have been like, yes, that's exactly who I need on my team right now.
You bring a good point. People, they were like, I don't put myself out there, what it should be. But it's good and bad, right? It's good because like me, I have no creativity at all, right? But I want creative people, right? So I would be drawn to you, right? But suppose someone isn't drawn to that, right? they will know, okay, maybe you two won't get along, right? Like example I'll use, when I was looking for a job one time, I'm not a big bicycle guy, right? If you ride a bicycle, that's okay, whatever, you know. A job I applied for on the website, it said, we're all avid bicyclists and we ride bicycles as a team every Friday.
Nope.
I'm out.
Yeah.
You know,
you got to be authentic. You
Yeah.
got to like be able to present yourself, because that's how you're going to be sitting down with people that you want to be sitting down, where you're going to find your right place. I've gotten jobs that I didn't agree with and didn't ultimately fit because it was more about the job than it was about the experience and what do you call that? Like the meshiness of yourself and the culture.
Talk about the points of like new developers having a GitHub.
I think new developers are, well, the few individuals that I've been working with, they don't want to collaborate. So they're all about pushing their code to GitHub, and they'll get their little green boxes every day, which is a trend. I think it's a very silly trend. You can like code on your local computer all day. You're not going to be pushing it to GitHub, you know. But I think that what's really important is, one, having that profile set up, and two, contributing to other people's work. So finding open source projects, or starting your own organization and starting your own open source project, because GitHub's beauty lies in being able to create issues, being able to plan a project out, and being able to collaborate. And that's what I want to see. If I'm going to build a developer team, I want to see that you know how to work with others and how to commit together on a repo and not destroy it completely.
René, for people who don't know, what is open source?
Oh, sure. It's it's like a project that everybody can contribute to. So there's like all kinds of different tech that's open source. For instance.
So is there any concern of somebody coming open source, like I don't say steal the code or mess the code up or anything like that?
Maybe
or
you could. There's kind of a process in place.
Okay.
So if you were to commit, so you were to come in and you're like, I'm going to do this open source project and I'm going to do this, you know, malicious code. If you're really sneaky and it gets through the peer review process, then okay. But I think ideally there's usually something in place that says like maybe 2 or 3 people checking your code before it actually hits that main code source. But it's beautiful because we were talking earlier about different perspectives. If there's a problem, someone might not see it. But the moment that you have a different set of eyes on the situation or a different set of eyes on the product, then you get a different perspective and you get a different solution. So open source usually is quick to change, right? It's very agile and it solves solutions the users need almost immediately.
How do you keep up to date, like your skill set? Like it's like, you know, you might learn a new language today. Tomorrow's on version 10 already. There's this Kotlin, Python, and on, right? Like, and most companies don't give you time to, you know, get up to speed, right? How do you like keep up with all that stuff? Has to be a pain.
It is a pain, but it's like a fun pain. I think this is like a rehashing of and a double click on being able to love learning, because you got to be able to dive in. So just last week, I just hit my break, right? I got done with my winter quarter classes or my spring quarter classes. I've got like 3 weeks until I'm going to be diving into other stuff. What am I going to do right now? I'm going to look into XR, so VR and AR, and I'm going to look at Clojure, Rust, and Elixir, because the Stack Overflow, right, has their developer profile thing or their survey that comes out. And those are one of the 3 ones that I don't know very much about that are loved by developers, which means it's a thing. So I would want to go. I use things like that. I'm like, all right, I don't know that. I need to go learn that. And it's cool. You build like a project.
What's your favorite coding language so far?
I mean, I'm always going to love Ruby. Okay. I think I love Ruby because of the absurdity that it had in like there's all these comic books and fun ways and this giant community for the Ruby on Rails community. I understand a lot of people don't love it anymore, but I think it's easy to read. I think it's easy to learn. You can scale up a team really fast. So it's kind of beautiful.
Who are some tech people that you follow?
Tristan Harris right now, because I'm really interested in that like ethics space. But I really am also very impressed with Noble Ackerson. He's been working in the ethics field in product. I'm moving away from tech specifically in engineering and going into more of like a tech product design, because I think people like me are needed in that space and I love it. So in studying human-centered design, I'm kind of like opening my world to designers, which is different, like Don Norman Doors, and different kind of books that just kind of cover product. How do you develop well thought out?
Next, I think you volunteer with something called Women Techmakers.
Yeah.
What is that here in Seattle? Is it a national organization? Or what is that?
It's national. I think it's global. So it's put on. It's Women Techmakers, and it's affiliated with Google. And then I'm a Women Tech Ambassador. And what that means is I get to do cool things like this, and I say that I'm a part of it. And then we're really just a community of allies and women who come together and kind of share a space. We have a Slack, we do conferences, we write blog posts. There's like different avenues that all of us do. I want to say over the past, we started in 2014, there's been about 1,500 women tech ambassadors. It's really just about advocacy and promoting and STEM.
And so do y'all like help people find jobs or just a networking thing? What's the success metrics for the organization, I guess?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay.
I've never really been concerned about it. I think what I'm more
just trying to network
about,
people.
Yeah. I think it's important to be able to connect with individuals in a space and kind of like learn, not because I want to get a job, but because I want to understand what that space is like. And the best way to do that is through people. But Women Techmakers also like helps teach women who, and that's my story. I was a stay-at-home mom who needed to learn how to do tech and was kind of stuck. And I feel like technology empowered me to move into whole new realms. And I want to bring that to other women. I want to bring it to other people generally. And I think Women Techmakers does that. And the Google Developer Student Clubs do that really well.
So on LinkedIn, you see all the time, like brand new developers, they're like, I've applied for 10,000 million jobs. I can't get anything going on. I've done GitHub and projects on and on and on. And it has to be frustrating, right?
Sure.
But so what advice you have them? Because it's like they're doing all the right things, right? They're doing GitHub, they're putting this stuff out there, and they can't get in the door. Like, what do you say for them? Like,
a good assessment of each of those components. When I got my job, it was all based on, and I'm not trying to say that I didn't make a wonderful portfolio, but I'm pretty sure it was because I went to meetups, I went to conferences, I talked to people all the time. And in talking to people, sharing my story and kind of sharing what I was passionate about, people invest in you. They want to see you succeed. And I think I had attended, and it was consistent. So it's not just like going to one meetup, meeting some people and then leaving. I went to a meetup consistently for like, I don't know, 3 months. And in that span time, one of the individuals said, my friend has a job. You should probably apply for it. And that was it.
Like hint.
Yeah. Like I had an in. And I think, and I remember, and this is embarrassing. I remember Brad Seefeld in the interview on the phone asking me, a support person calls in or someone calls in and you're running support because we were a small team. So we did lots of different jobs. He said, what do you say to the person? And I said, turn your computer on and off. Like I didn't know how to run tech support. So he laughed so hard. He had the same response. And I'm almost positive that's why I got the job. I think it's about having personality.
Yeah, you got a personality.
And you have to show it. You have to be bold in it. And I wasn't when I was younger. I feel like as you get older, you kind of start not caring and caring more about being authentic.
Yeah, I have a good friend, Kevin Miller. He's like a senior developer out of the Dallas area. So he tries to mentor like junior developers. And so I follow some of the conversations on LinkedIn. And so he was like, he did a LinkedIn article, whatever case may be, a post, like, you got to put yourself out there and make people know you are. This one young lady, she's like, I don't know what I got to do that for, right? It's going to be my job to, inform the recruiter what I'm doing, right? He should do it himself. So we try to explain to her, like, it might be fair, but that's how the game's played. Well, I don't know if I play the game. I'm just going to do what I got to do and I'll get a job. And we try to tell her, man, it's going to suck for you, right? You got to play the game first, right? You got to put yourself out there, be even not personable, at least, of course, you don't want to not be authentic and all, but you still got to, like you said, so you can collaborate, all that kind of stuff, Well,
even like the interview process with the top companies, right? If you wanted to work at Google, if you want to work at Meta, if you want to work any of those larger organizations, you need to have the technical skills. So you need to be able to study all your data structures and algorithms and you need to ace that part. But you also need to be, googly, or I don't even know what Meta does. Like, what do they look for? But whatever that personality trait is, if you have it already there, you need to be able to demonstrate it. It's like 50% of the interview. I just can't imagine not having a personality and going into an interview and selling myself effectively just based on I can do this, array algorithm thing.
Yeah, I had Amanda Ono's on podcast a couple of days ago, and she's a VP of HR company in Toronto, Resolver. And she told me how she referred to a good friend of her for this job, right? She said her friends like, happy-go-lucky, humorous, making jokes all the time. But they passed on it because Amanda, like, your friend is like a robot. Everything's like straight-laced professional. She was like so focused on answering the question correctly, she forgot to be herself and be personal, right? And I was like, man, what happened to you? Like, they said you're like a robot. You're the funniest person I know. Your friend, like, I know, I forgot to, be myself. I was so locked in on the answer. This is the answer, this answer, right? And trying to do the technical part of the job. And she didn't get it, right?
Well, they tell you in interviews to always share what you're thinking.
Mhm.
I don't think that's just share what you think the other people want to hear yourself.
Yeah, that one is, that's where these people give you all these problems, right? They want to have you think out loud, like, how many tennis balls can you fit in the Seattle in the wintertime, right? Or something crazy like that. They know there's no right answer, but how do you go through the thought process? Like, okay, tennis balls are this size, the landmass of Seattle's this size, on and on, right? And that's not be correct. You just make the shit up, right? They don't know if it's right or not.
What if your key trait is that you just think outside the box? And so they give you that question, and the first thing you think of is, I associate beach balls with tennis balls. And like, whatever reason that takes you down this weird path, you're going to see that.
Yeah.
And I think that when they see that, because other people might not feel comfortable saying that, to be like, that individual.
And they're going to say, Jason thinks differently. We need that here, right? Everyone always thinks, everyone here thinks like René. We don't need a René. We need a different mindset.
I mean, you do need a René.
Yeah, actually,
but
you do.
So I was thinking about this actually on the way here, because I was anticipating a question of like, what's the one thing that you like to share about yourself that's unknown? And one of the things is Synthesia. I have it, and I think a lot of people secretly have it.
So what is that?
Synthesia is where you kind of just mesh the world up in your brain. So like when I'm listening to music has a color, and it has like a lighter darkness, and it has a volume. It has all these things. Like some people can see music, so they see where notes are or what on the piano.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. So I was tested for it, and I found out that I had it in 2010. Long story short, I have this one called Temporal Spatial Synesthesia. Because I know that my brain works differently, I know how to like leverage my world. But I think that we all think differently. Yeah. And I think because I have, and it's just because I took the test and I knew that I was different. If I hadn't taken that battery, I wouldn't have understood that my brain was different, just like, science maybe hasn't learned how we all see the world differently, which is why I have to share it. We have to know how each other see the world differently so that we can come up with really cool answers.
Yeah, like for me on Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFJ, like only 1% of us in the world, supposedly. And something I would have known in my life. I recently learned 10, 50 years ago. So I think differently, do things differently, right? Like, okay, this all makes sense, right? Because I took the test and I studied, what's an INFJ? 14 signs, like, oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Oh shit, maybe I'm not a weirdo. Maybe you're just, special, so to speak,
Yeah, and there's like a way that you fit in to the whole puzzle. And I think that when you know those things, you're able to understand when other people in the room, we don't all think the same. This individual might need me to listen more. This individual might need more prompting and engagement. Like that's also how we manage teams, right? You want to be able to pinpoint these differences and like make it work in such a way.
So you've been involved in tech since 2017 or 2014?
2015.
15.
Yeah.
So in the 7 years you've been involved in tech, give us your take on, diversity in tech, right? There's like not enough females, not enough white people. And it's like every year people try to do better, but I think the stats are still the same, right? Or is it just a process taking too long? Or what do you think the holdup is? I mean, it's a complicated problem, of course. So
yeah, there's my thought that leads into it is that we have a narrative that we're all following and listening to, and where we all like want diversity in tech, and we keep talking about it. And these companies keep kind of trying to hire engineers. I get this a lot. I'll get like a hi René, let me see how great you are at this and this and this. We'd love to like have a conversation with you. And I'll have a conversation and it comes out because I'll ask directly how many men are on your team and how many women are on your team. And not just men and women, even like, what's your diversity like? And they'll immediately be like, well, actually, that's why we're kind of talking today. Like, oh, so you want me to be like a token on your team, which means you want me to change your team. And that's not fair.
And not only that, usually there's like 10 guys on a tech team to hire the female. What the female have to do from now on? You can do all the interviews from now on.
Yeah.
Like I didn't come to be an interview person. I came to build great products.
I think it's really funny. I didn't actually realize that this was a thing. Until I recently was talking. I took a gender studies class, and we were talking about what it was like to be a woman on a team. No one else in there was in tech because it was humanities. But I had said, you know what? I did organize events, and I was kind of responsible for getting birthday cards. Holy moly. Like you don't really see it. You think it's a thing that's good. I'm good at being social, but it's probably.
So let's say you have a project, you're only female. Hey, René, can you take notes for us?
And that's concerning. But in regards to like the diversity problem generally, like I identify as non-binary. And I think that when I'm in the space of like talking about identities and how we have difficulties finding our ways to jobs, what I hear is a lot of people trying and then they get into it and then they don't fit in. So it's not about hiring. It's about it's systemic, how we hire. There was one company that told me I was going to be a token hire. That's what I call it.
And they actually told you that.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciated their transparency, but that's why you ask. That's why you're authentic when you sit down at the table. And when we had this conversation, I said, well, I was looking at your top leadership and it looks like you are about 90%, cis white male. So you put me in leadership and I think that I can start to help make changes. Like if that's really what you need me here for, put me up there. And I didn't hear back, but I feel like that's kind of the answer I'm going to have moving forward. If you would like me to be that person on your team, then put me in leadership and start there. And then it'll trickle down. Because that's where it should start, I think.
So my thing is like diversity is good, but I always go back, hire the best person, right? Hire a comma, the best person is a whole lot of demographics, right? The best person can be a white community, Black community. And plus I think you got to expand your recruiting search, right? If you're in the Seattle area and you only recruit University of Washington, you're missing all the talent down in Green River College, University of Tacoma, UPS.
All the diversity too is, I think, at community colleges. I think there's a stat for that, and I wish I knew what it was. I think I was just speaking with some representatives from really large companies about how they could open that funnel to community colleges. Because when you're going to UW, it's a different demographic than it is for North Seattle College, for instance. So if they could open a pipeline from community colleges and Amazon is also on this. Amazon just put 3 million or 3 billion maybe into Seattle colleges and community colleges around Washington because they recognize there's a lot of talent there. How do we tap into that? And it also kind of addresses systemic inequality and lack of equity. But you had mentioned that when we're hiring people, we should hire for the best job. And I almost agree with this because sometimes what people think in our mind, our heuristics, is that the best person for the job is, we have an image in our mind. And that image in our mind might be a white male named John, or it might be, I don't know if it's always a Black woman named Sarah. Like, I don't, So I think it's important that we create equitable situations now. So we create the opportunity for all types of diversity to come in. And then once we have it at that status quo, once we get there, then it's about kind of maintaining and then hiring for the best, because we'll have changed that narrative. So I'm about to publish an article about gender neutrality in tech. And while I was reading Technically Wrong, which is a great book, but it was talking about how back in the day, around 1950s, when women were main programmers, right? The majority of programmers were women. Then all of a sudden, they started making personal computers and they were marketing personal computers to men. And you see, as the marketing to computers goes to men, the amount of women who are able to enter into computer science and STEM related fields in college drops off the map. Other STEM related fields like physics, mathematics, these things are tracing and trending with male and female the same up through present day. But we dropped all the way down, something like 14% in 2011. And it wasn't until they started to realize we're not preparing young girls or like any demographic appropriately, and we need to stop. It's kind of like a capitalistic interest that kind of got in the way. And now we're kind of seeing that decline reverse. I want to say that women in tech right now is actually declining. So I don't know where the gains are, how they're doing on it. But.
So we talked about this in our pre-talk, but there's a stat somewhere, I'm making this up a little bit. Like, 80% of elementary school girls love STEM. They're very interested. Yeah. By the time they get to high school, it's down to 10%. So it dropped from 80 to 10% over like 5 or 6 years, right? Mm-hmm. That's a big ass drop. Like, is it societal pressures or like, what do you think the challenge for that is?
I think that there's enough narratives right now and enough parents right now who see my kids need to be in STEM because that's how, that's where technology is going. And that's every field has some kind of programming, it seems, in it. So I think as a parent, right, we look at our kids and we can say, you need to learn how to code and you need exposure to that.
You think how much success if you're a parent? Do I want my daughter to learn to code, maybe make $100,000 plus per year, or be a waitress living off tips, right?
Right.
It's like, it's not close. It's not competition.
When I was growing up, maybe at the same time, like your girls were being raised, I don't remember, and I had mentioned this also in our pre-talk, I don't remember anybody saying anything to me about tech. I had great grades. There was nothing that would have held me back. I do remember someone saying, psychology and the humanities are good for you. You should go to college for those things.
Do you think that's maybe because you're like so sociable?
Maybe. I'm kind of like that extrovert kind of person in a room. I've never really felt uncomfortable speaking my mind. And so possibly, I don't know, but I feel like there just wasn't, and it's not really pointing my finger and blaming them, but I feel like I never thought of math or science or tech as a possibility. And I think that's interesting. I'd be interested to hear other women's perspectives.
Here's a question for you. So let's suppose there's a tech startup found out there, right? He has a great product, he's building a company. He needs to build a software development team, right? He wants to do diverse hires, but he needs to build a product faster, sooner than later, right? To get investment. He can go to his 4 best friends, all white. They're going to build a product from like in a month, like month to 2 months, right? But then if you got to do a diversity route, he's going to take a longer. He has to recruit the people, bring them on. So I think it's a challenge like people go through, right? They want to do the right thing, but man, I got to hire these people now to build a product. And then let's say I'll hire diversity later, but then it's too late because they have 8 white guys and no one else will work for them, right? So
And
how do you work through that?
I think that understanding first and foremost that design is everything in your product. So it should take a long time before you get your product up and running. And I think also having perspective in design is the key to success. So the moment that if you could just sell, and this is one of the things that I had wanted to go back to school for, I was unable to articulate why design and diversity was important for the people that I was working for. How do I communicate value? How do I tell them that this is worth your time? And I couldn't. I will in a couple of years, and I think I could now. But it's about, if you just have, let's say, those 4 specific perspectives working on a team, they might not think about ableism, they might not think about racism, they might not think about any, because they don't need to. And so when they're designing a product, and I'm not saying that they are prohibited from doing so, they very well might, but most don't. So to have an inclusive design, to have a product that can reach people effectively, and I love having a product that speaks to me, right? I don't want just some typical app. And if that's what you're building, and that's what this person wants to put on the market, and it's gonna die, you want something that lasts. You need to put design and effort and perspective into it before it goes to market. Take time, I guess. I'm more of like the tortoise than the hare,
So talk about the importance of design. I don't know, people don't get that. A funny story, when I first started doing tech stuff and design, I had no idea color set numbers, right? I just said, this is a blue. What? Design, what blue? What number blue? What do you mean? I just want blue. No, this X1, 2, 4, X6, 7, 180 blue. Oh my goodness, this is overwhelming. Pick for me,
It's not just colors. And that's what I think I love about design. It's the experience. It's, how if somebody has a muscular situation where they can't hold their fingers as easily, is this something that they can use? And this is, these kind of design questions are the things that I'm interested in. That's what human-centered design is all about. We are humans, first and foremost, using technology. I shouldn't have to read a manual to read a product. This is what we love about IKEA, right? IKEA is well-designed products. I think when we think IKEA, we think well-designed. We also think it's going to break in a few years. But the design part is the assembly. Have you looked at those? You don't have to, it's not like you're reading a whole giant manual. You're looking at the picture and it's very intuitive where these tools go. That's design. And so if you're building technology that's well-designed, you're building something that users are drawn to because they just feel like this is a jar and I open it, this is the glass and I drink it. It's just something that we build in. So I think that the solutions challenge, we took 3 months and I designed this thing called Pantry. And it was a way to reduce food waste across.
I saw that. Yeah.
I love it.
It's a YouTube video, right?
Yeah, I had to do a demo. But the process, I spent 2 months designing that. And it was only 1 month of actually coding it. What I noticed in tech and what I noticed with a lot of my peers is they're like, let's get in, let's do this, let's start coding immediately. And what's going to happen? They're going to code a prototype, they're going to get their MVP down, and then they're going to be like, oh, well, we should have put this in.
Yeah, and it wastes time and money.
Yeah.
You got to do wireframing, all kind of stuff first, right?
I think that it's like an iterative process. Are you familiar with design thinking? So that whole process of coming up with some basic thing with wireframes and then just slowly using the end user as your moving point, you're using needle, instead of like a CEO who's like, I want a button here. Well, why do you want a button here? Who's it going to serve? I think it's a good question.
That's a tough lesson for me when I first started doing this stuff, right? I say this all the time on the podcast. If you ask Jason, open the door, Jason gets up, open the door, right? Or common sense, right? Jason, develop you. I say, Jason, get up at a 20-degree angle, use 30-degree thrust, walk 2 steps, turn the door,
Yeah.
It's like regular person, you say do 1 through 10. Developer, you got to say 1A1, 1AB2. And it's like all these user stories, you got to do all this minute detail. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? But that's the way it works, right?
Yeah, sort of. It depends on your managers, I think, your engineering managers, the people who are creating your product. Are they creating a story that you can relate to? Sometimes they say, like, at least I've read recently, that you should try to empathize with other people, of course. But I know my story best. I know how to design products and design technology that fits my world first and foremost and my interests. So I should represent that. And I think that's an interesting perspective. Could you just be a designer for René Capella or the René Capellas in the world? And what does that look like? Like, what kind of specialization in design? I think that might be interesting. Instead of having, me say, Jason, what Jason wants and what Jason needs right now is this. Nobody wants to feel that way. I don't think I would ever properly get into your brain and know what it is that you need. You would know best.
What kind of design tools are your favorites? What's your go-to tools? What do you use?
Adobe, mainly for graphical design stuff, which is fun. But really it's just, books and processes, right? Design thinking has been revolutionary for me. Just being able to think like, how can you be on a team and how can you creatively come up with ideas? These are the kind of design tools that I like to use. I think when we think about design graphically, those are more like the implementation, which is also kind of cool, but mainly just being able to have the systemic processes in place, Kanban boards, GitHub, communication, Discord, things that allow for communication and social.
Say, talk some about your role at Google DCS and how you built the community.
I love my Google.
415, that's a pretty good community.
Yeah.
What was the number when you started there?
0.
Okay. From 0 to 415. Okay.
Yeah. I was the computer science president at North Seattle College. I had taken that over. And that was maybe a community of about 100 people, but nobody was really active. And we would get online and we would talk about what courses to take. It was a very valuable resource for the people that used it. But when I learned about the Solutions Challenge that Google holds each year with the United Nations, and I said, wow, I want to do that. And then I was very naive and thought I could just do it. Apparently you have to be a part of a Google Developer Student Club. So I went online and I applied and I'm like, I get this. I did. And what ended up happening is it was a full year, Jason, of the most just profound lesson in leadership, community building that I've ever experienced. I think that the the Google folks who allow this, they kind of just say, here's all the marketing tools, make magic happen. And that's intentional. It's ambiguity. And some people thrive in that. I thrive in that. But other people get very well, what do I do next? And how do I do this? And I think because I just have that, I just want to make something that works with what I'm doing. It was awesome. It was easy. It was iterative. I'm going to be doing it this year for the University of Washington too, hopefully.
What's your coding process? How do you do it? Do you do sprints? Do you do agile? How do you work through your own process?
Whatever gets the job done is typically my route. So if it's just me on a team, it's not going to be as agile as it might be if I have other individuals. But I think I like having just a basic, I like to toy and I like to make a prototype. And then I will scrap the prototype and I will start anew. Let's say you build a bridge and you're like, wow, I learned a lot of lessons here, and the bridge isn't perfect. I feel like you should burn the bridge and build a new one based off of all the lessons you've learned. So that's kind of how I.
And so are you the type of person, code 80 hours straight to build a project? Or you code 8 hours a day, 2 hours a day? How you do that?
Yeah, I think it's more 8 hours a day is funny. I feel like you get into these deep rabbit holes and that's the beauty. If there's a zone. If you're an engineer and you have interruptions that happen every hour, you're not getting code done. And if you are getting code done, it might not be as interesting or as deep or solving as good problems as you want to solve. So I like to do a week stint of just coding. I don't go out, my body is aching because I'm not moving a lot. Everybody should move all the time when you're coding. But and then I kind of take a break and walk away from it. And I think that process for me allows me to get really deep in the things that I'm solving.
Talk about your Discord community, how you built that up.
Yeah. So I was actually speaking with some global folks from Google about this, because when you're holding a virtual event or you're holding like a virtual community, it's very different than like an in-person community, right? And when you're having a forum, and I think anybody who's tried to drive a forum or a community like Discord or Slack, you have to have cheerleaders, I think. You have to have individuals, at least 5, that are active in the community and kind of know to be active in the community. And they kind of keep the conversation going until the individuals in the community start to feel safe psychologically and can come in and start maybe talking about, they know that they can talk about these things and can talk about whatever issues, which is what we did. We just kept continually advocating for openness, being able to be vulnerable. Being wrong was almost like encouraged. Our mascot was the rubber ducky, because you should be able to come to me and tell me, and I'm not going to give you the answer. I might know it, and I might hint ways. But what I want you to do is to tell me the problem, and then by telling me and describing the problem, find the answer yourself. So I'm just going to be like, I'm just holding the space for you, you know? I feel like people really respond well to it.
Talk about all these events you plan, like 415 events. That's like this, and what time period is that with? That's insane.
Yeah, probably from September to just like last month. We've died off. 150. So most of them were local. We had the Google Developer Student Club had 2 main camps. I'm actually splitting it next year. Different discussion though. So the local events were more like individuals in our local community, like, you know, maybe they want to talk about a computer science class, a project that's coming up. Maybe they need to learn specifically how to work with Java, you know, things that we worked very closely with the faculty at North Seattle College to see what their students needed and what was important. But then these global events were very different. These global events were like me, 16 other colleges from around the United States, like Princeton or like Atlanta. There were some folks in Colorado and in Canada. And we would get together and we would create kind of these just national topics on the cloud, on Android, on machine learning, career development was the latest one, which is great. We had a whole thing on GitHub.
So have you always done like extra stuff, right? You always like doing extracurricular activities, like you always like your main thing, like all these side hustles, has always been your personality?
I think I'm very active. I think I've had a couple of friends mention that I'm too active, perhaps. I think being a mom, I think I've not always done like a lot of like volunteering or being out in my community, but I have always been like, here's my 16 hobbies that I'm doing, right? Here's my art, or here's my music, and I'm learning how to code, and I'm also doing this blog. Like I've always been like that. And I don't know what describes or like what makes me that way. But I think that it's one of the things I love about myself, because I'm always trying new things.
So are you going to try to influence your kids to get into coding?
Oh yeah, they already are.
They are.
Yeah, there's more like robotics mainly. I think it's interesting. One thing that I kind of feel like I lack is just the robotics piece. I've taken some courses on it, but I feel like if from a younger age I had understood how circuits work and how you can like engineer and build things. For me, like, are we always going to be on these computers, on these boxes? Or are we going to start wanting to understand how to like build whole systems? So for me, the coding plus the robotics is really important for them, but mainly not just the code, not like Python. Like people ask, what language should my child learn? I don't think that there's a language. I think that there's a logic. And that's what, is it Scratch? Have you, from MIT?
I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, they developed Scratch, and Scratch Junior is an application, I want to say, but it visually lets you kind of work through the logic, which I think is more intuitive and less scary, instead of like learning Java where you're like, I forgot to put a closing bracket, you know, and it doesn't run and I don't understand what that even means. Instead, it's just the logic, just the purity of it.
Yeah, that reminds me. So I'm on TikTok a lot, and I follow that guy, Neil Tyson DeGrayson, the Black scientist.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how people like kind of shit on math. You know, I need to learn math. He said, it's not, I'll never use it. Sure, you never use it, but it's the fact that the problem solving skills you learn doing math, you can transfer those problem solving skills to anything else in the world, right? And people don't get that. I think the same thing with like coding and computer science. You know, even if you don't never code in your life, just the process of problem solving and learn how to problem solve. It's like you can it's a transfer of skill.
Yeah. I mean, you'll talk to engineers who are like, I love puzzles, you know? It's because that's a skill they developed somewhere where they understood there's something I don't understand. And instead of saying, I don't want to tinker with it, they were like, let's get in, you know, let's like solve the Sudoku, or I don't know, look at this weird situation that makes absolutely no sense and solve it.
What's some future tech out there that excites you that you want to learn?
I want to learn more about XR generally. I think I'm a little concerned about it ethically, which is one reason why I want to get involved with like VR, because that's kind of like the dystopian image, isn't it? We put on this goggle and we're, you've seen the images where the person has the VR headset and they're like controlling against a wall. I think I want to be more involved in that, and I want to start kind of developing and designing in that space so that I can see like what are the ethical applications of this really interesting technology. I saw somebody do a business card that when you look through their phone, they're like all their information, it's like a little hologram. It's an adorable thing that I loved it just because it was this new way to express oneself. And I think it's things like that that break our brains out of just the normal humdrum of every day. So I think AR has a lot of cool applications, at least for the art space, which excites me.
So back to philosophy real fast.
Yeah.
So, there's ideas out there, what's this to do with different philosophies. Well, I was thinking about what ideas out there we haven't thought about, right? Like what kind of ideas there, I think I'm making this up probably, but I think in 1898, U.S. Patent Office wanted to close down permanently because they were like, everything's been invented. There's no need for us, right? Luckily they didn't close down, right? So what have out there ideas for things out there, like, space travel, like, can you travel by speed of light, all these different ideas, right?
Yeah. I think that's creativity. I think that's also one of the reasons like I like having so many different realms around me and learning from all these different spaces, because your brain starts to do this like diffuse merging of stuff, right? And then you can think of crazy possibilities like Star Trek, right? Star Trek had it, like people still talk about how there's technology.
The flip phone,
yes.
the TV screen, the video conferencing. Yeah.
I think that we're kind of pushed towards the technologies that we explore based on things like sci-fi and creativity and culture. So start with the creativity, and then you have to encourage the arts. You have to put money into the arts. You have to allow people to express themselves. And then maybe we'll come up with more creative spaces to go into.
Yeah. I'm a big believer that you can think of it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, same. And I think that sometimes you have to kind of, I don't want to say fake it till you make it. It's like the wrong phrase. You're not faking it. You're just starting with a prototype and you're continually building on it. Even if it's, and this is about more like branding, but let's say you wanted to present yourself as a software engineer, then you make your GitHub and your LinkedIn be a software engineer. And then you, every day, while people are seeing it and while you're building that brand, you're becoming an engineer. And I think that these two things in tandem, same with technology, it's just it's better to do that than to just wait until you are an engineer. Who determines that?
From your point of view, what characteristics make up a good software developer? Like collaboration, I'm guessing is one of them. Attention to detail, what other ones?
I think if you have a team, I think it's important to have different personalities. So one person who is, meticulous about syntax and about styling, I think that's really important. But you can't expect somebody who's meticulous about the syntax and styling to also be really creative and think largely. And they would kind of spread them too thin, I think. So having at least 3 developers, 3 people, 3 horsemen who can sit around and kind of grapple with each other, that's what produces the best. I'm like a slime mold, a spirit slime mold creature. Like I believe that we collectively can come up with answers. It's never just one person, it's not just Ford or Benjamin Franklin and these narratives we have. It's collectively people coming together and making awesome solutions because we all have different strengths.
So if you want to build a great product, is it better to have a remote team or in-person team?
I love a remote team.
Remote team.
Yeah, because I did do the in-person. We were talking about how down here in Seattle, it was open concept, and we didn't talk. There was more talking on the Slack channel in this open concept room than there was in the room itself. And I feel like it's nice to be able to meet face to face. I think that this is important, but I can pivot really well in the morning and I can hop between different tasks. I don't have to get ready and get dressed and do my hair and put on things and go places. I like remote work. I think, and I was doing remote work before the pandemic happened. And I remember specifically thinking, I wonder if everybody's going to learn the secret now. And now we're all going to go, and of course, is kind of going back to in person, which is a little sad.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's still a struggle going on, right?
I hope.
I mean, if you're a company, I'm like, I don't know, like if you're a company, do you really want to put your people to paying like $10 per gallon per gas, all that kind of stuff? Like, someone did a LinkedIn post, like, if you want to bring your people back, you should, like, then, let them go to take care of the kids when they want to, pay for gas, all the things they've been doing, right?
I agree 100%. I do think that when I was at DispatchBot, I was doing some like product ownership kind of stuff. And one of the things that they had me do was travel to different states and talk to our end users, our clients. That was helpful. That was the best experience because I got to see how they interacted with our tech. That's different. I think that needs to be in person. But when I'm like writing code, let me just write code however I want, when I want, where I want, whether it's a cafe or it's in my room or it's on my sofa or it's in bed. I think developers intuitively know how to like manage their space.
What's your definition of good code?
Readable code. Very, very readable. I think this is actually has like a really good business ground to it as well. I've worked on several legacy Ruby on Rails developers are like 10, 15-year-old applications. Yeah. So I think you hop into these code bases and you can't read the code because whatever developer was on whatever 8-hour bender and was deep in this logic, and maybe they can't even read the code now. So one of the things that I like to bring to my code is I comment where necessary, but I mainly just make the code simple and elegant, which takes a lot longer than writing a lot of different smelly code things.
Back to thing like it takes longer to do a 10-minute speech than an hour speech, so something like that.
Yeah, you need to have conciseness. But what that does is it allows your team to be not just senior developers 10 years down the road. These applications that are older need intense, like well-crafted engineers who know how to handle complex code bases. When in reality, if they had been writing simple code from the get-go, I think junior engineers could come in and could navigate it, which you're going to spend considerably less money on a junior developer than you are on a senior. I do think it's important to have seniors on teams, but when your product can only be taken care of by senior engineers, that's a concern.
So when junior developers go to good interviews, I know a lot of them complain about having to do like whiteboard interviews.
Yeah.
What's your take on the whiteboard interviews? A good thing, bad thing? Because for your answer, there's a conversation somewhere, and it's like person, push back, say, what? I understand convenient. However, I once hired this guy, and then do a whiteboard interview. Ended up, he knew the tech, but he was like outsourcing it to someone else. So he really didn't know it right. So now he does whiteboard interviews, make sure they know what they can do, right?
Interesting. I like whiteboard interviews. I'm not very good at them. I don't do well under pressure when I'm asked to answer a question. I think it's hard. I think you have to do a lot of practice and prep for it. But I appreciate that preparation. However, do people have time to do that kind of preparation? The kind of algorithms that you solve in like a Fibonacci algorithm, you're not going to do in your daily.
And plus, too, if you look for a job, you're just not interviewing one company. You probably interview like 6, 7 companies. So you got to do 6, 7 coding interviews, whiteboard interviews, probably different problems. Like how do you study for that?
Well, there's like a whole market for this. People have exploited it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I should have known that.
Yeah, there's free.
There's probably like whiteboard coaches out there.
Yes, and they you pay a certain amount of money for like mock interviews. There's a lot of free resources too. But one thing that a good story. I was hiring for a senior developer, and I was also hiring for a junior developer. When I was leaving DispatchBot, I was trying to find replacements. And so I'm hiring these, and I'm actually giving the same question to both candidates. And I remember a junior developer came in, and it was a Fibonacci. It was like off of Euler's problems. And it was a Fibonacci problem. And they go in, and they're like, I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, well, let's just give it a try. Just like, tell me your thoughts. And they did. They didn't get it. But man, they got really far into it, and they were like, I don't know, I just failed. And I'm like, you didn't fail. I actually think we ended up offering them because they had tried. There were senior developers who had also taken that problem. And I remember anger. There was one person, I had asked a question. It was I was looking for a senior who had AWS experience, and I was asking about EC2. And they were like, I have the certificate. I shouldn't be asking, or I shouldn't have to answer this question. And I was like, I mean, that's okay. You're done. Why would you want to work with somebody who has that kind of attitude? He could have just said, I really don't know, but I would have gone to this documentation and I would have, consulted this. And from what I can remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to be personable in your answer. I like people who are passionate, humble, kind, communicative. If somebody comes in and thinks they know everything and get angry when you challenge that.
He should have said, hey, I have a certificate, but it has been a while since I did it. So I got to freshen up on my skills, you know.
I think, and I would have, in my mind, I think my immediate reaction would have been empathy, right? I too, in technology, know that I forget things and I need to use documents. I mean,
like, how dare you question me?
Yeah.
I'm obviously superior than your computer skills.
No. So I
You're like, I'm the hiring manager. What are you doing?
But also, like, you're potentially going to be working on a team with me for a little while. You should, you know, like I think that when you go into these interviews, being able to especially if it's like a database design or if it's like architecture or coding, what would it be like working with this person tomorrow? If you were to sit down and be solving this person or this problem with this person, how would you communicate? 100%, you would not sit there and expect them to not say anything.
Yeah.
And while you solve it, they would absolutely be like, I don't know, what do you think? What do you think the constraints are? Do you like this approach or do you like this approach? Do you think space or time is more important? And these are the kind of things that I think led people to like really solidify their place in these interviews.
So René, let's say money's not a problem, unlimited budget, any resource you want. What product would you want to build?
Oh, that's such a good question, Jason. I don't know. I think I would want to put a lot of that money into resourcing what problem, or like searching and researching what problem needs solved. What problem is so systemically awful that leads to all these other problems that we're trying to solve? I would want to find what that is. And I think that's finding what the problem is like should be where most of your money goes, and everything else should be easy peasy, right? Because that's design.
What's like the craziest problem you see seeing somebody trying to solve? Like it's off the wall, like you're trying to do what?
I think I have an example. Do you have an example?
Yeah. So I was just one conference one time, MIT form, I think it was called. This guy, he had to be like 56 years old. Like he said he was like a retired physics, science, whatever. And he briefly was like, we're like, this actually makes sense. There's no way this can work, but what he explained would make sense, right? He wanted to raise, man, like $500 million on the first round to build an escalator from Earth to Moon.
Oh, you know what? Like, actually, this is one of my first like blips in my brain was something that had to do with like weird things like space elevators and.
No, escalator.
Escalator.
He want to do escalator, not even elevator. He want to do escalator. Yeah, we're all good. Like, is this guy on drugs? He's on LSD. What's going on here, right? Like, and he was a calm, like had the grasp, the stats, like that makes sense. So I don't know.
Maybe sometimes you need that. Like maybe sometimes you need kind of these unexpected weird things in order to get you. That's like the Hegelian dialogue, right? You have these two extremes and they merge together. Maybe that escalator tech would be good for ring hopping. I don't know, whatever. Maybe it'll serve some other.
I was thinking of all the problems, like, gravity, no oxygen, how you energize it, like
those constraints.
Yeah.
There's like a conversational trap where you think about all of the money that goes towards something like that. And when you could be like solving other more systemic.
But I think it's good to have like off the wall problems like that to just think through it, I think it's good for your creativity,
Yeah, like putting a car in space, all the things that Elon Musk does. And I don't know if it's like a team that is Elon Musk or if like Elon Musk is actually just himself. But I appreciate some of the weird, unexpected things that come from him, either his Twitter account or the car in space thing, because it throws us off. It like makes us recalibrate. What the possibilities.
And the thing with him, I know he takes a lot of crap from people, but who's doing what he's doing, right? Like, I mean, he's like the Einstein, Edison of our time, right? I mean, most people can't even handle working a BS 9-to-5 job, right? He has two like big time companies, and like I'm thinking about like he's authentic, right? You know what you get with him, right?
There was an interesting my gender studies class pulled up Elon Musk, and this actually put a check on me. Pulled up Elon Musk, and then also pulled up Kanye West, and said like, what are your perceptions on both of these individuals? And a lot of the class, had a typical like this person is powerful and sometimes like this person is unstable, right? And that was an interesting, because they both are creative.
Oh yeah, they're both geniuses, and both, right? and if we're honest, we're both unstable to an extent, right?
Right, yeah. And I think and when we say unstable, I think what we mean is that they're just not predictable.
Yeah.
And they seem to be experiencing the world differently than how we're expecting people in such power to be.
Well, Elon Musk has like 7 kids, 6 different wives, you know. I mean, there's a cost to what he's doing, right? Everything has a cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
To what he's doing.
And he's pushing limits. He's got that email that he sent out about work. It's just bold. It's unapologetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that we could talk about how that's offensive and not thoughtful and not empathetic, but just in itself, because it exists, it has.
But see, with that, I think people miss with stuff with that email he sent. He sent an email out saying no more remote work. But I think he's playing chess. We're playing checkers, right? So supposedly, Tesla's going to have to make layoffs pretty soon, right? So do you want to like have to tell people, hey, you're getting laid off, or you want them to self-select? So tell people no more remote work. I'm not working no more, and you leave, right? And then the 10% is gone, right? Because you already said, you know, basically said, if you're special, we'll work them not with you, right? I think what's going to happen, 10% of the company's going to leave. Whatever he needs to leave, they're going to leave. And he said, oh, I changed my mind. Remote work is back on, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's what I think.
When I hear that NPR thing come down the pike, I'm going to think of you immediately.
Yeah. And another interview, you know, I must did was pretty interesting to me. It's like right when, like, you know, Tesla stock was up, he had finally landed, like, SpaceX rockets in space and back, you know, landed for the first time. Like he had his, like, what's it, the flamethrower company that just made like $10 million. Like whatever he did, like, it's like golden, right? Yeah. He was getting interviewed on this podcast, video podcast. And the guy was like, man, Elon Musk, it must be great in your life right now. Like everything's golden, right? You're just a man. He was like, he paused. Actually, my life, shit. What you like? What do you mean? Well, people don't understand how to do this, how to do that. You know, he talked about kind of like all the stuff leading to that, right? You know, loss of personal life, you know, the hours in the factory, you know, like, yeah, y'all see the success, it's good or good, but this is the cost, right? And people don't have to see that in an entrepreneur, I don't think.
I don't know if people, I think that there's even in running communities, when you're trying to be very methodical and strategic about building communities and getting teams to work together, a lot of the things that you do and the processes you do can not really be evident or you know, superficial. And then when you have a lot of pushback and a lot of, I think part of the job of being a leader is being able to like communicate a vision that's guiding everyone, but then having your own vision and making these two things work with each other. I not to suggest that I am any Elon Musk, but I think I relate very much to understanding the world differently than maybe your community understands it, and trying to get everyone on board for this greater vision that you have and communicating it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, I just like the way he puts himself out there, right? Like he knows that he's not a great speaker. He knows people don't like him, but he still hosts a Saturday Night Live, right? He made fun of himself, right?
Yeah.
So he goes on TV shows. Like he had a relationship with that single Grimes for the longest time, right? Like you think the direct opposite, right? She's creative, kind of, you know, flaky a little bit, you know. She talks about space aliens, you know, and then he's like the straight-laced, you know, science guy, right? There's nowhere they make it, right? They, you know, worked out for a while, right?
There it is, creativity and science.
Yep.
It's a theme I think that'll be forever connected. I think I like that. I like that he reached out and had this like different, it showed a different side of him.
And you think he'd marry, like, be with some, like, you know, VP of development, you know, or some PhD in psychology or what's it called, physics, you know, but picked a very, very creative person. Like Grimes, I knew who she was, and like you go to a YouTube channel, like, oh man, this is off the wall creativity.
Yeah,
like
I
this,
think that was my response.
this is like, oh, what in the world? Like, yeah, you never think they match together, but yeah, I mean, they have 2 kids together, I think. So
sometimes that's like what you need. My partner is very opposite of me. When the two of us are in a room together, he's like quieter and he's very composed and he's calm, and I am emotional and I feel things. I'm a little impulsive, but strategic foresight kind of in it. And he balances me out.
yeah,
I think it's really helpful.
Like me, I'm an introvert. I'm not really creative, so I always try to bring on like creative extroverts to the company, right? Because I don't need an introvert, right? I got that on lock, right? I don't need like 5 people not talking to each other, right?
You need kind of a diverse set.
So what's humane tech? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's about understanding that our technology should be serving our well-being and should first be designed to be used by humans. Sometimes we experience products that are like, what is this? And how do I have to adjust my humanity in order to use it. I also think it's about being ethical, understanding those heuristics, understanding kind of the vulnerabilities of being human, and how do we ethically not exploit those vulnerabilities for profit.
So what do you see as the future of tech?
is something that, for instance, we all have long-term goals. You know, maybe we want, I can't even think of something. Maybe we just want to be healthier or happier, right? These big long-term ones. And we don't always know how we're going to get there because in the immediate moment, we might be doing things that don't get us there. Maybe because our tech is distracting. Maybe because I want to play that new Diablo game all day instead of, you know, studying this book of some topic. So I would like to see tech understand that there's value and profit in helping me get to those long-term goals, and not just like, here's an exercise bike or here's a Peloton subscription that you can do. Something that kind of really uses those heuristics that we have in order to slowly build me to long-term success. That's going to make a loyal customer base. I think it's going to make a better society, especially one that could support democratic conversations, right? One that kind of teaches us how to be more emotionally aware. Imagine if everything you did, every game you played, every piece of technology that you interacted with, you intuitively knew somehow that it was there to support you for a better tomorrow. I think that would feel really cool. So that would be neat. I don't know if we're going to go there, but
that's one frustrating thing about tech. Like, it's like every day there's a new company building a, you know, food delivery app, right?
Yeah.
Or is tech really solving any like problems? Like, is a tech that trying to cure cancer or try to like solve the real problems? Oh, here's another exercise bike, or here's we're going to like, we're trying to solve the last mile logistics, or another HR tech recruiting AI app, right? There's like 10 of them in Seattle alone, right?
Yeah.
Like, is someone going to like solve a real problem?
I don't know. I hope so. I think that, again, it's those immediate impulses that are really easy to feed off of. Like Instagram is great. I get stuck on TikTok, Instagram, these things. I think that they're really delightful to use, but I've been lost after an hour of being like, have I really just been sitting here doing this? But then when I leave TikTok, for instance, I feel inspired. And I don't know if I go out and make cool things, but I do feel like you could be anybody and you could make whatever content. And these people are living like what seems to be an authentic life. That's cool. So how do you take something like that, something that is so addicting and delicious and fun, and make it so that it's supporting artists and communicating and dealing with our emotions? How do we bring all that together effectively? I don't know.
I think TikTok, like social media, like most social media, it's good stuff and bad. Like TikTok, of course, there's like girls that are dancing in bikinis, all that kind of mess. But then again, like I follow people on there. One lady, Alessi Vanette, she like does daily sales tips, you know, how to do B2B sales.
Yeah.
Another guy, he's like his 70s, he's a psychiatrist. He does a little salsa dance that gives like a mental health tip in Spanish to English.
Awesome.
Then there's that guy, Dogface 2020. He did like a video like a few years ago with the cranberry. He the one who lip synced to the Fleetwood Mac song with the cranberry thing.
Yeah.
He blew up, you know, Bella Portugal up there. So there's a lot of good stuff on there, you know. A lot of people are giving lessons and stuff how to do. Like one guy I follow, he's doing the TikTok like every day on how he's building his house, you know. So it's a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
However, it's like when you cut it off, right?
I think that there's like, I was trying to do like how to become a developer through TikTok. I think that that's an interesting path. And I remember trying to break it up into these minute segments. I think it's 3 minutes now that you have, but it was hard and it was difficult. Like, how do you appeal to lots of people?
Yes, actually, you can do 10-minute videos in now.
Oh my God.
It's up to 10, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know if it would hold my attention that long.
Yeah.
It'd have to be really good. That'd be interesting. Actually.
Some aren't, you know. So let's talk about leadership. Or maybe now the question should be lack of leadership, you know. Like what type of person do you want to work for? Like, what's your personal preference for who you work for? Like, what type of leader?
Yeah. I've had a couple different leaders, so I think I can answer this pretty effectively. And he probably won't listen to this, but I'll definitely tell him to listen to this. Brad Seafeld was the CEO and co-CEO of DispatchBot. And Brad was the one that I did you turn the computer off and back on and it might work. He was very flexible. He was very calm. And he had like a very loose vision. I mean, he knew what he wanted with DispatchBot and he would tell me what I needed to implement. But he had this like, just go play, go figure this out, take as long as you need. Because I was a baby engineer. And I felt like that kind of support and that kind of trust ultimately I ended up being a lead engineer for that company because I knew the product. And I knew the product because Brad would be like, what do you want to work on? And I'm like, I don't know. I want to do some of this like DevOps stuff. And just Brad, I don't know if it was out of necessity or if it was just out of like an innate understanding that I would do well. I'm not sure, but he trusted me. And I really feel like in doing that, he opened a lot of opportunities for me to understand how products are built. I like leaders who are calm and collaborative and allow me to be creative. Not everybody loves that though. Some people like a leader who can be very task oriented. I think that when we're leaders, we have to recognize each individual where they are. Maybe not through like a management test or anything like that, just through conversation. What do you want from me this week? You know? And when that person says, I just don't know where I'm supposed to go next, then you can be like, all right, let's talk through it and let's figure out a list and we can task orient it until you feel comfortable and like you can own it again. As long as you can convince your people that they are a part of it, that they are owners in the product that you're building, they will be invested, they will be loyal, they'll be committed to the whatever end goal you're going towards. And that's worthwhile. That's the kind of people I want to work for, you know?
Yeah, I think no one wants a boss to like, bounce on the walls, yelling all the time, being mad.
No.
No, opposite, if like your boss, you work for, his name is Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like suppose Brian's calm. Now, suppose Brian got mad at something. You knew, okay, Brian's mad. I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. Something seriously wrong. He never gets mad.
Mhm.
What we just make Brian unmad, make him happy again. But if he did every day, got mad every 2 hours. Okay, he's mad again. Whatever.
That's toxic. I've worked for someone who yelled at me and I left very shortly after. And that experience was it was terrible because what are you supposed to do when you're in a position as an employee when someone is yelling at you? I don't think that leaders understand, maybe even parents don't understand that when you're yelling at a child or you're yelling at an employee, the employee doesn't have power to stand up for themselves, to tell you like you're disrespecting me and that's crossing a boundary I'm not comfortable with. In my situation, I did say that. And then I got yelled at more for standing up for myself, even though it was calm. And I think that's a power dynamic I'm not comfortable with. Yeah.
Next, talk about your parenting.
Yeah.
So you have 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
Like you just, I think you said 10, 7, and 4?
Close. Yeah. 7, 9, and 10. I also
7, 9, and 10.
struggle with ages.
And the girls, boys?
There are 2 boys and then 1 girl. And I'm the biological parent of the boys, the 7 and the 10-year-old. And I co-parent. I co-parent very successfully. I'm very proud of what we have accomplished. We separated, maybe my oldest boy was about 5. We had separated and it was the most amicable, calm, like this doesn't need to be a legal battle. We care about each other. We care about these kids. There was still some animosity, but it's been like 5 years now. And we kill it. We do a really good job he's military. He's in the Navy and the diver in the Navy. And he right now is actually on a road trip with the boys. He's bringing them back to Seattle. I haven't seen them for about 6 months, maybe a year. And the boys will stay with me until they're 18 or until Caleb gets stationed here. And then we can have a more equitable, time for each of us.
So do you kids do the, daddy versus mommy thing?
Oh, like trying to pin us?
Yeah.
No, because we're so communicative. They know that Caleb and I are like on the phone always. We're always talking. Also, my partner Andrew is always talking with it's like a ecosystem. We all understand that none of the kids can manipulate it.
Doing this cocoon, right?
Yeah, because we're too solid. But we try to do engineering processes and kind of this like agile, iterative approach to parenting as well, which is kind of silly when I say it out loud. But we really think that 2 of our children kind of need tasks and need reminders and to-do lists. So we have Kanban boards all over our house. We have all kinds of different processes set up to make sure that they succeed every day.
Well, it isn't fun like kids can be grow up in the same house all 18 years, but have completely different personalities, like different interests. I mean, like even twins, they have different interests, different things, just crazy how but they have the same parenting skills, same everything the same, and then like they're so vastly different.
Yeah, that was humbling for me because my 2 are very different. And I think when I had my 1, what do you call those parents? Singleton parents. When I had my 1, I thought everything I did shaped this child. And I had this upstanding sense of what is a good parent versus what is it bad. And then my other one came out and the other one was I was doing the same things and he was responding so differently. And now that I have these, it's an interesting dynamic. I've just been I'm just here to support a psychologically safe space for both of you, and you're going to figure it out. And we're going to have fun in the process.
So I'll tell you my answer if you give me yours.
Okay.
What's your definition of a good parent?
Ooh, you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
So most people think a good parent is like, no, my kids has $100,000 job. They're happy. They're a doctor, blah, 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 NFL athlete. To me, I used to think like that. But now I think, okay, you're a good parent if when your kids leave your house or are grown up, they contribute to society versus taking away. So contribute can be simple. Some of the simplest, having a job, paying taxes, right?
Yeah.
So contributing. Taking away is like, they're in jail, they're robbing people, they're on the system all their life, so they're taking away, right? So to me, it's like that.
I hear that answer. I disagree a little bit. I think that if my kids are still talking to me when they're in their 20s and in their 30s, if we still have a good relationship, then I've done something right. Because I think I know that just from my own experiences, sometimes you have to take a bad path. Sometimes you don't make the right decisions. But if the child or, the adult doesn't have anyone to go back to, they feel so alienated that they can't talk to their parents. And I think that's one of just the biggest tragedies, because you're supposed to be fostering this great relationship. If I've done it right, I've created a space where my kids feel happy and comfortable and safe, where even if they're not happy, they're still safe and able to talk to me. So when they are like 40, or 30 or 20, and they have things going on, they need to know, and I hope they know that they can always come to me and we can sit down and talk. And there might be judgment, but it's like open transparency, talk it out,
Yeah. Let's have this other philosophy too, and tell me what you think. So I'm a bigger believer that if you don't have your kids raised like you want by the time they're 13, it's too late, right? But I think by the time of 13, peer pressure takes over, friends take over, TV takes over. I think 13 age where like, the ethics of the ethics, right? The person they are, the person they are when they turn 13, right? So you haven't like spent years like born from birthday to born day to 13, like installing the values you want in them, like teaching them what you want to have them. I mean, I don't think you can teach a kid, oh man, my son's 16, I need to teach him how to be a man, or my daughter's 14, I need to teach them, how to make sure people respect her or whatever, right? Yeah. I think 13 is the age. That's my point of view.
Well, I've had a life experience that I think speaks otherly. So when I was 5, my mom died, and I felt very lost and confused and grieving for like 20 years. It was a pretty long, and I was not the most empathetic, I was very extroverted and very happy and very me, but my values hadn't been developed until I finally was able to get rid of this abandonment thing. And when I got out of that, it wasn't until my mid-20s, easy. And that's when I realized, after I'd explored all these different modes of reality, that this is who I am, and this is what I want to live for. And, so I think we all take different paths. I do think that the formative years, I think they've said psychologically is 1 through 5. That's the personality forming. And then, I can see how the moment that you lose them at 13, the moment that media and peers and all those other influences, I think we lose a little bit of our, but hopefully they continue that hard work, on their own. I can't say that everyone does.
Yeah. Talk about the points of personal growth.
Well, I think that failure is really important to building good perspective. I didn't finish when I went to Miami University for philosophy. And because I didn't finish, you better believe I finish everything now, because I've lived with the regret of not continuing that. Relationships, when you fail in relationships, you kind of learn how you're supposed to get through it. The hardest part, I think, is getting over regret. I think that can be one of the biggest punishers, especially when you get older and you're looking back at your life and you're like, oh my gosh, I've made all of these incalculable mistakes that have led to this present moment. The only thing that you can do in that moment is to take another step, but in the right direction, right? And I think that's very hard. And if you have the right support system, you're good.
I know a lot of people will say, there's no such thing as failure, just learning. Sometimes I'll be like, man, I'm tired of learning. I want to succeed. I'm tired of learning all the time. I want to be successful at something.
Yeah. I think I'm like probably constantly failing. I think I'm really aware of it too. And every decision I make is potentially a failure. And I think you just have to be not afraid of it.
Yeah, this is this guy I follow. He's like a big time product manager out of the Bay Area, in Shaw. He says his goal every day is to be less wrong tomorrow than he was today. This is his goal every day, like less wrong.
Yeah.
About stuff.
There's a mantra that I kind of carry with me, and it's just be a better human. that changes. It being a better human was different for me 5 years ago than it is today. But like when I am in my kitchen and it's just a habit now. I'll hear myself say, be a better human. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put the dishes, or be a better human. I'm gonna rinse out the recycling.
So
like,
do you ever say, I'll be a better human, but not today?
not today.
Not today.
Right now.
Not today.
I'm pretty good at like giving into myself. But there's absolutely a feeling of like, I don't wanna, like that you can feel this sense of like being a better human is hard. And sometimes I guess maybe I probably do. But
what's some things in your bucket list?
I don't know. I think that this sounds kind of silly. I'm not saying that I've lived everything, but it doesn't have to do with like traveling. It doesn't have to do with like living big experiences. I really want to work for a company that is like, just has resources and power and it's like making something really impactful. Like I want to be a part of a team that knows more than I do. And I'm not saying the teams I have been on, I've known more, but that feeling when you're with a team of people who all want to just kill it or excel. I shouldn't say kill, it's not an appropriate word, but those kinds of vibes, I just want to be on a team of those people. Like, and I want to be in all, and I want to learn from all of them. And I think that kind of experience, I have some ideas of where it might be. I'm really interested in the Google Associate Product Manager program. I think I have got 2 years to prep for it. And so I've been working on that because I think that that's 45 people from around the globe who join that cohort each year. And that's the kind of people that I want to be with. And I feel like that's a bucket list item, just to be a part of greatness, to apply our skills to make something amazing.
Do you think you'd ever start your own company, your own tech startup?
I've been told that I would be very
like
good
maybe
at
an XR tech startup?
Maybe. I think I like creating things, and I like building teams to build amazing things and get projects done. But I can't think of what that idea would be. I wouldn't even know how to get the funding. And there's all these like roadblocks. So one of my things in my back of my mind is maybe someday I'll go get like an MBA when I'm like ready and I want to take that space. But I don't feel confident in it,
That's kind of surprising. You're not confident in something. You feel like you'd be confident in anything.
I mean, I think that if you were to dump me into a space and you didn't tell me that I was being a CEO, I would do amazing. But I think the moment it's like we get ahead of ourselves or we get in our own way. That's sort of how I feel, at least especially and there's so much risk. Like what if, I don't know, all the time and the energy that I would want to be putting towards other goals into a business, it's not ready. It's not time yet.
So what's this degree you're getting right now? What's it called?
Human-centered design engineering.
What made you decide to get this degree? I mean, you already had a successful software developer. Yeah. Why? What is this degree? What can you do with it? The whole 9 yards.
So I had that experience of being yelled at. And I also was having an experience at the time with an inability to communicate.
Now, before you go, I could be wrong, but University of Washington has like top program of this, right? Like the number one program, right? They're like number one.
There's Carnegie Mellon, which is also really good. But this
it's not like you're going like North Dakota Institute Tech of Farming to learn design, or or Odessa Junior College learn design. You're going like the number one top school. It's a big deal to even get in. Right?
Yeah. I worked really hard to get into this program, and it essentially is learning design, but being empathetic and understanding equity and kind of designing products differently than how we experience them today. I'm very excited to be a part of the program, and the people that in it just make amazing things. What I see going into this program is gorgeous.
What's the name of the lady there? I can't think of her name, but she helps people get internships at the school.
I'm not sure.
I have to look it up and give it to you. I can't think of her name.
Everybody has been really helpful so far. I've talked to a lot of the advisors. I've connected, of course, with all of the masters and graduates, or all the graduate students in the program. Everybody, all they say about it is like, you are going to have such a great time. That's the vibe. And they can never really quite tell me why, but it's like this exciting roller coaster that I'm getting on. But I left engineering because I was kind of doing product management, I think, at the role that I was at DispatchBot. But I felt not so sure about how to create a good product. And I also had lots of things coming in from the C-suite of like, we want this and we want this and we want this. And I was like, but why? And have we talked to our clients? And do we know? And I wasn't able to have that process and have that power in myself. So I stepped back and I decided to go back to school and get prerequisites at North Seattle so I could enter this program. there was a book that my partner got me, Value Sensitive Design. This book is about designing a product and thinking about not just the stakeholders that are included, but also the excluded stakeholders. How does your product or your whatever that you're building, how is it going to affect the people that are not being considered? Is it going to be ethical, or is it going to destroy cities? Like just these long, deep, deep philosophical questions. And I was blown away. Like, yes. And I remember reading, and it was like University of Washington. And I was like, all right. So I went and I Googled it. The Value Sensitive Design Lab is part of the informatics school, but the informatics school isn't one of the best programs in the United States. The Human Centered Design program also kind of holds that space with value sensitive design. And so I started Googling and I started looking at it, and the classes that are offered are so cool. They talk about ethics. They have a society ethical program. Like there's so much more consideration. I think coming out of this program is going to make me a very well-rounded product manager. As you can tell.
So is that your goal to be a product manager, like a big time tech company?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I think that you can make big things on small teams too. And that's my specialty right now, is working with small teams. But I've been through the Google Developer Student Club. I'm the one that collaborates and gets all these other leaders from other schools together to do and kind of runs the project. And it's been interesting. And
so you're trying to be like VP of product at some kind of department of Google?
That would be so great. Wouldn't that be beautiful? I mean, I don't know if I'm ready for that sort of thing, but I think being able to think about big pictures, I don't have the audacity to say that I can think really high level about these complicated things, but I think that I understand how to go about finding all these intricate details and how to take all of these things and weigh them into consideration and make really good business decisions. Which is why I'm back at school. I want to be good at it.
And you're a full-time student?
Yeah, it's lovely.
Are they still remote, or are they actually in class now?
We're in class.
In class? Mm-hmm. That's been a great experience.
It is. Andrew got me this little scooter from Vroom Vroom, and we've been going to UW. So we live in Edmonds, and I'm going to take the light rail down with my little Vroom Vroom. And then I have a helmet. That's like our agreement. So I'm going to be on the campus with my helmet. And I was finding and mapping out all of my pathways to class. I'm excited.
Anything in college, like the college experience you weren't expecting, like kind of surprised you?
No, I was really surprised by calculus. I was a philosophy student. I skipped math, Jason. I was able to do logic to get my math credit when I first went to school. So when I was doing my prerequisites for this program, they were like, so you got to do calculus. I was like, I don't want to. I think I had done algebra in high school. So when I started taking these calculus classes, man, I was definitely thrown for a loop. I got a good grade. So it was okay. But I think I have to take Calc 3 in the next couple of quarters, and I'm terrified.
I told somebody this a couple of days ago. So in high school, I only did algebra 1, made like a D+. In college, I took like bullshit math classes, right? No algebra, nothing, right? So when I got my master's human relations, very first class was stats. And that shit kicked my ass. I don't know how I passed that class.
Hard.
I still don't have an idea how I passed that class.
Because all the equations seem like they're the same equations. Yeah. And you're like, but what's the difference again?
Yeah.
Oh, there's that. They were suggesting I could take stats or calc. And I was like, maybe calc.
Yeah.
That's complicated.
That's what's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so you know your bachelor's degree from there, right? Mm-hmm. VP of product at Google, maybe is a goal. Yeah. I still think you'd be a good startup founder.
Maybe.
So I need to connect with this friend of mine. Her name is Mary Rossi. She's a military spouse too. So she still has a creative design company, but she got hired on, I think, 2 years ago. So the Sims game. Mm-hmm. She's rebranded the whole entire Sims game. Wow. Yeah, so rebranded the whole thing, right?
That's beautiful.
That's pretty cool. I think y'all two would definitely get along.
Yeah, there's something to be able to take a product. I hear about, and this is what I've been paying attention to more than like engineering, is I hear about people who are like taking over products and rebranding it and reformulating it and getting new teams in. And I have so much admiration because I know how much work and thought and research that goes into organizing all these teams to get that kind of stuff done.
And with her, she had a tough decision because her company, like creative design, I can't remember the name of the company, creative design branding, and she was taking off, like she was like to like really make it big. Mm-hmm. Offered the job, like, like how do you turn down Sims, right? I mean, like you do the job, you're successful, worked the 2 years, that's on your resume, right?
Yeah.
You tell people anywhere, hey, I rebranded Sims. See that Sims game? That's me, right?
They're gonna know.
I was like, how do you beat that, right? I mean, so
I love those experiences too, where you can, that's one of the reasons we started a Google Developer Student Club at North. I think in my mind, I knew that community college students were talented, and a lot of them really are, but they don't necessarily get the recognition for being, because they're not at like a official institute. And so institution. And it was like, let's do this. Let's get this Google brand. Let's get on a platform. Let's take it as an opportunity and let's make names. And we did. Our group, there's about 5 or 6 of us, ended up being the most active across all of North America. That's huge. And we're just, 5 or 6 community college students. I think that that's a really inspirational story. And it's one that I'm going to take with me. It doesn't matter as long as your team like wants it and is willing to dream big and go for it.
What do you do for fun?
I play video games with my family.
What kind of games?
Right now we're playing Diablo because it's very addictive.
The stereotypical computer science nerd, right?
Right. But I mean, so what we're doing, I told you about Dragon Week.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I do as a parent, because I have to find ways to keep myself engaged with parenting. It has to be fun for me too. And I like to do these really cool, I have my whole house wired up with Philips Hue bulbs. And I like to, so one time we took the kids out back near the river, and Andrew had like left his backpack and supplies. And in his backpack, he had this journal about this other dimension. And there was this like device with a light switch, and there was a potato. And so I was like, okay. And I was like, don't press the light switch. And of course, all of them are like, we're going to press it. And I'm making sure that they're not looking at the house. And I have my phone and I'm like changing the phone to blue. So all the entire house is changing blue, and they've switched it. So when they switch it, I'm like, oh my gosh. And they all look up on, because they're behind this.
I told you not to do that.
Yeah. And like the house is blue. We're all, oh my gosh. And then we all like creep back, and we had a fog machine going that we hooked up to the central air system. So now it's foggy and it's blue. And the kids are going in, and we see this big pile of baking soda. But I tell them, like, I feel it. And we're looking at the journal, and the journal says it's like a monster that eats people and animals and turns them into dust. And so Andrew is lost and he can't get back. We have to go find him. And he's somewhere in this blue dimension, which is not home. And it's so cool to be able to have these like experiential. Right now I'm doing Dragon Week. We're going to have a dragon. It's a stealth dragon, and it lives in the back part of the woods. I took a giant Easter egg. I covered it with hot glue. I painted it. I put a little stuffy dragon in there, and they're going to find this egg. Every day they're going to wake up, and the egg is going to get a little bluer because it's going to be dying, and they need to get it back to their mom. And we also have aliens that visit us come in our oven. They're the children of N, and the planet's name is N, and they like to put things in the oven like dinosaurs that walk around and stuff.
Your kids, they get older, you're like, man, we had the greatest childhood ever, or man, or they're gonna be traumatized for life. They're gonna be like some kind of mental health breakdowns. Oh my goodness, we live in aliens and blue eggs, and my mom exposed us to stuff.
Mm-hmm. There was one time, I think it was a little bit too far. We had shut the power off in the middle. It was like right when they were going to bed. And so all of them, they're giggling and talking and playing in their rooms. And then we shut the power off. We had the fog machine going because it's critical. And I'm in downstairs coding in a tent. We always have pop-up tents in our house. So I'm coding in this tent, and like they're scared. They're like, something has happened. We had like scary music playing.
So they haven't caught on yet?
They haven't caught on yet. And that's the magic. I think I'm really into magical realism.
Yeah, when they figure it out, that's going to be a disappointing day for you.
Well, I mean,
when they figure it out, you're going to be like, oh my goodness.
They figured it out. They don't figure it out immediately during the process. There was one, the blue dimension one. I remember Iona like looking up and being like, squinting at me and being like, this isn't real. And she was like, okay. And then they get into it. The youngest one, we had one where Andrew had transformed into a werewolf or Bigfoot or something. He had a big suit, and they had to go find these hidden treasures. And there was a map outside, and it was a full moon, yada, yada. So they went outside, and the littlest one is scared because Andrew had laser tag, and he was, so he was like, the littlest one is running, and he gets trapped by branches, right? And it's dark out, and he's screaming.
Oh man.
He thinks, right? And I immediately, of course, like swoop it. And I'm like, it's okay. It's just a joke. It's gonna be fine. And he was fine after that. But that blood curdling scream, to this day, he'll tell you, it's great. I love these things. But he was terrified in that moment. And I think that because of that was one of the first ones we did. And I've been a lot more careful about making sure.
Maybe not too realistic.
Yeah, making it like a little bit fun, like that curious, the world just shifted. Something weird is happening. And then.
So this might be too much for you to do, but have y'all thought about videotaping this and like posting on YouTube? Like
But that would be hard.
Like the adventures, or,
We
the
should.
pranks on our family or whatever case may be. I think y'all would blow it up on that stuff.
I think that would be really fun.
And they do like a background video, like how the science works, how the baking soda works. This is what we're doing to our kids. They don't suspect a thing.
I would love it.
Or like this one thing on TikTok, and this girl, I'm sure it stays because there's no way this young lady falls this every time, right?
Yeah.
So it's a husband and a wife and the daughter, right? They go to the auto parts store, and they'll say, "Hey, go in there and buy me some air tire, or something that's off the wall. You don't buy air tire, right? Or just something like something off the wall. You don't do this, right? You got me again. I can't believe it, right? So there's no way this girl is like, it has to be staged, right? Just a funny thing, right? Every time, go get this off the wall thing, I hate you guys.
Oh, that's sad though. Maybe it is. Maybe she does get tricked every time. I think that would be. Have you seen that TikTok phenomenon where it's called like interactive sleep?
I don't think so.
I don't know how I got into this like dark corner of live TikTok.
But if you know, Russ, there's so many, there's like food TikTok, dance TikTok, psychology TikTok.
Yeah.
Anything you think of is that TikTok, tattoo TikTok, bourbon TikTok.
This one is not, I saw it yesterday. So it's like, I hadn't been on TikTok for a while and we're looking through, I look at like funny animal videos with my kids, but this one was somebody sleeping and then the individuals, like you can send in gifts or something on live. I don't actually do it. So I don't know, but they could send in an emoji or a heart or a gift or something. And then like they've programmed it where it'll scream or flash a light or do something loud to wake up the person that's sleeping. And it's just like 8 hours of somebody being essentially like tortured. I
don't know about that.
I don't know about it either. I also don't know if it was real. And so it was this weird feeling of like, are you okay? Like, do I need to reach out to somebody for you? Yeah. And that's strange. So
I know you say you like drink scotch. There's a channel on TikTok. There's like where every day they review a different scotch. I can't think of the name, but I'll forward it to you once I find it. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Scotch is delicious.
So how do you take care of yourself? How do you make sure you don't like burn yourself out and drive yourself crazy?
I think having all those different interests, right? I can do a charcoal, and then I could learn about XR, and then I can go play some Jan Tiersen on a piano, and then I can go parent really well for a minute, making some cool elaborate scene for them. And I think being able to pivot between these things allows my brain to diffuse. But also, someone had once told me, like, your time management skills are through the roof. And I actually don't, I feel like I have a lot of downtime. And maybe that is a credit to me, but I feel like it's because I pace everything out and I can see it, and, in my brain for the next like 3 months. These are the things I'm doing, and this is the energy and when I need to allocate it. I don't feel overstressed at all. So
how often do you sleep each night?
I have to get 9 hours.
9 hours?
I have to get 9 hours. If I don't get 9 hours, I'm sad the next day and unable to function, usually cranky.
So you're a morning person, night owl? Night owl.
Yeah. I feel like, and one of our children is also like this. And so we just want to stay up. We just want to like do stuff in the evening, and it could be anything. It could be art. It could be homework. It could be like, I feel motivated. Like that book that I never want to read during the day because there's so many distractions, suddenly at night is like, yes, I should be sleeping right now, but I want to dive into this amazing book.
So how do you stay so organized? Like you run everything off a Google Calendar or to-do list, or what's your secret?
Yeah, I have a really weird paper system. Have you seen those time management? It's like, it'll give you by the week, and it'll also have by the day.
Yeah.
And then it'll have by the hour, like, et cetera. So I break it off into these intermediate chunks. I have a large calendar that I work with that's based off my digital calendar, which people, assign me things, right? They'll be like, we want this done. And I'll say yes or no. And then I copy it to the paper one. So I get it down in my visual memory. And then I just segment it out. And that's only when I feel pressure. I don't do it all the time. Like right now I'm on break. I was telling Iona how bored I was. I'm going to be bored for like the next 3 weeks.
I mean, boredom can be good sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yeah. And that's why like the dragon thing is happening. That's why like it gives me space.
So do you have trouble like not doing anything? You always have to be doing something?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a level 2 Iris meditation teacher, which is all about not doing things. And I think that's kind of ironic. But I really love the idea of being able to sit. One of the meditation retreats we do is you don't speak and you don't do anything. You don't paint, you don't fiddle with rocks, you don't read, you don't draw.
You don't realize how hard that is not to do
It is
anything.
so
It's so hard, yeah.
Yeah, it takes 3 days, I think, of like not doing anything. It's like torture for me. And then by the 4th day, I'm like, you just feel so weird and different and connected to people in a different way.
They talk about, I think it's called the monkey mind.
I don't know. Tell me about it.
It's like even if you're meditating, all these thoughts come in your mind,
Yeah.
and the monkey takes over your mind. Yeah.
I don't know about the monkey mind.
Okay.
I know that when I'm meditating, I'm comfortable with it. So I can lock into I feel like I can lock in and let everything go very quickly. But there was a good year or 2 years where my brain was just firing off all the time. And you get to a point where you're sitting back and you're watching all of this stuff happen. And you're like, whoa, my brain never stops. And then slowly you kind of distance yourself from it. And then it just slowly kind of becomes this, it's never like a purely quiet place, but it is like a muted place. As this stuff is going on, your brain, it almost seems like my brain is operating without me. And I'm just in the background,
observing it, so to speak.
And then observing the observer, and then observing that observer. And when you get into this repetitive syncing back on who is the witness and who is witnessing the witness, that kind of mantra gets me into a state that is just really lovely. I really like it.
So when you're supervising people, because you're in charge of direct reports, what does someone have to do for you to say, hey, you're not working out, you have to go? What do they have to happen in that case?
Yeah.
What makes you let somebody go?
I think that when you give people the opportunity, so as long as you're having clear communication with an individual about what your expectations are, I've been led by people who've not had clear expectations and then been disappointed at me for not hitting marks. So I make sure that I state what end result I need. And if that person says, okay, I'll do it, and then doesn't do it, okay. So last time I gave you an expectation, you said you would do it, you didn't do it. You tell me about it, we'll talk about it. Give them another opportunity. And I think that once you hit a certain set of, and I don't know what that is, I think it's dependent on what your tolerance is for the individual. But if you're breaking my trust, I think trust is important. I need to know that you on my team can deliver when I need you to deliver. That's part of project management. It's part of product management. And it's part of being on a team. You can't be a reliable team member. Nobody is going to let the person on the soccer field be a goalie if they never catch the ball.
Yeah.
And they say they're going to do it next time. I got it next time. But then they're still sitting down and
I know in football they always say, the NFL they always say, availability is the best thing you'd have, right? You be the best, whatever it is, but if you're not available, what good are you, right? You have to be available and consistent, of course.
I really love people who are flexible. I think one of the more difficult things to plan out when you have an individual on your team who wants to do lots of different things, but you don't want to allocate a lot of power, right? Because that could be complicated because they could come up with a different strategy than what maybe your other members of the team have. And so, but I really appreciate it because I think that those are the individuals that are loyal and they're here to get invested in everything. It's just an interesting team member experience.
What's your take on how to put this? So let me backtrack. Let me ask you something else first. Are there any interesting projects you're working on right now?
What's that?
Any interesting projects you're working on?
Any products specifically?
Projects, yeah. Do it for yourself or someone else.
Yeah, I'm really interested in natural language processing in the space of gender neutral check. So there's I recently went to Georgia for a bachelorette party. And when I was there, here in Seattle, I'm used to everybody saying what our pronouns are and kind of having this exchange. And when I went to Georgia, that didn't happen anywhere. And it kind of got me thinking about etiquette and how we can be more inclusive. Is that inclusivity something we want to do? So I started doing research, what the arguments are on both sides. Is it appropriate to be giving our pronouns? Is it not appropriate? Or is it, what are the arguments on all the perspectives? And I wanted to create not something that said what we should do, but what if we could create just a simple app that, and I've started already building it, where I can talk into it or I could upload a file and it can code for me what inclusive and exclusive language I'm using, not just pronouns, but also maybe idioms or metaphors that we use that are actually quite systemically maybe racist or ableist or sexist. And to be able And ideally it would be people who are like this, I'm totally inclusive. And then they go and they do this thing and they're like, well, maybe I'm not. And then, or maybe people like me who are like, I don't know, they just want to try it out. Or maybe even people who think the whole gender inclusive movement is wrong. They want to go challenge it and they go use it. And then they can see maybe how hurtful and how like what the roots are, things that they're saying and what it represents. I think awareness is, I don't think anybody wants to be a bad guy. Nobody wants to come in and like hurt your feelings. People want to get along. It's a general experience I've had. So if you give people the tools to understand each other, then maybe we'll want to understand each other more. I don't know. So this is a small project. It's working with Django and Python, and it's using an external library called Spatial. And I think I want to learn more about how to actually train my own models because I haven't found a data set that works really well with what I need.
So how do you keep from going crazy? Your brain just busting with all this knowledge you have, like these projects, are you doing this, you're doing that? Like, how do you like keep organized?
You just got to keep making stuff, I think. And I think that you set yourself up by having a GitHub, right? Being able to have these small projects, but again, pivoting. I think having so many things that I'm not committed to long-term. I don't have like any deadlines. And that's the luxury and the privilege of being a student. I don't have anything due tomorrow. I can play however I need to play. If I need like satisfaction in getting something done, I could go level my character up, or I could go finish a pillow, or I could go do some craft. I think the art piece specifically is what balances me out. I don't know what other people do.
So what's your take on this? I think some people would say like developers, they're always like building stuff, right? On GitHub, building different things, but they never finish anything, right? They'll go from project to project. There'll be a freelance project. They'll work for a while, get to the point. They'll jump something else. Like they build, but do they ever actually finish something? Maybe complete anything?
I mean, I would say that users are always changing. So your product is never finished, even when you think it is.
That's a good point.
But so my partner's an engineer, and he is always building crazy things around our apartment, like things that will like just interesting solutions, things I would never think of. He is an inventor at heart, and he's always tinkering. And there is always something laid somewhere where some project is in mid flight, And I think that's part of our brain. I think we just like, at least individuals who are geared towards problem solving, I think we like to be able to solve and solve and solve. And then we need to step away from it to do like diffuse thinking. We need to go get different solutions, different perspectives, and then circle back to it eventually. Hopefully people circle back. I would feel sad if I didn't finish.
What advice you have for either women already in tech or women trying to get into tech?
Getting into tech. I think that being able to network with all kinds of different groups is important. There are women who code, there's women tech ambassadors. These are important resources to have. I cried the first time I went to a women conference because they were talking about experiences that I had had in the workplace. And I just didn't know that other people also had it and that it was a thing. So I think that's important to have as support. But I think it's also important to go to conferences and to go and do meetups. Don't join. We can't say this, right? I've been told not to say this and not to have this attitude. I don't want to join a team of all men, or all one type or all one demographic. I want to join diverse teams because I don't like that experience. I'm not well equipped enough to go into a room and help shape a culture to be more inclusive from that level. I think that there are women out there who are very strong and capable of doing that from an engineering role, but not me, not right now.
So let's talk about this. Everyone says I want to do diverse hiring, but I don't think they admit or recognize how tough diverse hiring is, right? You're just gonna say, I'm gonna hire this demographic, right?
Yeah.
First of all, they have to be qualified.
Mm-hmm.
You have to convince them to come work for you, right?
You have to find them.
You have to find them. Or do they really want to work for you? Right. You just have to say, oh, I need a Hispanic female. Go find me a Hispanic female, or whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
I think people underestimate how hard it is, right? I mean, you have to convince them to work for you. And like you said, if, are you going to work for a company with like 10 white females or 10 Hispanic, whatever, or, 6 for the case may be?
Yeah.
And then so you're off the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's people don't recognize how tough it is.
One thing that I saw happen was recruiters or CEOs or anybody on the team who's hiring, they would talk to their friends and their friends would be the same demographic as them. And then they don't have friends from other demographics. And I think you can't hire that way. You have
so many people do.
Yeah. Like maybe, I don't know how expensive it is, but when you go to like a career convention, there's conventions where there are a lot of different employers, maybe that's a way to diversify and shake up the pool. I just know that you'll meet people whose friends are like them. And if you're just hiring out of that, and then you say, I can't find anybody, you're not really trying.
Like, I know there's a lot of VCs who will say, I want to invest in like, diverse things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they'll say, I only meet people who I'm introduced to by my own network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you hearing yourself?
Yeah.
Like, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another thing, right?
Well, again, like we all don't want to be villains. And I think I would love to think that my network is diverse, but it might not be. And I think being able to use that philosophical mindset of like, wait, am I really doing what I say I'm doing right now? Is really important. I have no solution for how to convince, because it hasn't worked. I think when you tell people you're not being diverse, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's welcoming. How do you convince people in power that maybe they need to reevaluate?
And diversity means so many things, right? You might have a team with 10 people with like 3 whites, 2 blacks, on and on, but you don't have we'll say a Native American on there.
Yeah.
Or you're not diverse, or you
don't have diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, I don't think,
But your product is going to benefit from it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think that and that's, I think, the angle that I'm trying to take by going back to school and making sure that I understand all of these like hard principles. How can I turn ethics into profit? I have a lot of respect for NGOs and not-for-profit. Just the whole realm is gorgeous. But I sometimes wonder if for-profit industry could be interested in ethics. Like, I think that's the driving force, right, in the market. So I think that would be amazing.
Oh, it kills me like you have a company that's like, man, we need to increase sales to like, this demographic, but the demographic doesn't work for them, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to know what the demographic works if there's no one on your team who can talk about it?
I was just reading a book called Design Justice, listening to the audiobook actually, because in my car, who has time to read? And the book was talking about the Invent the Toilet thing. Do you remember this? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had started a Build or Reinvent the Toilet kind of design challenge a couple of years back. Billions of dollars get put into this thing. The winning teams hadn't actually gone to these places where the toilets were going to be installed, and the toilets had absurd constraints. Like, it needs to get rid of all the bacteria, and it needs to be a technology that everybody's going to want to use all across the globe. And it like had all these design constraints. It has to be like 5 cents per user over its lifetime. All these things that just sounded really difficult. And the people who won created a toilet that you would sit on, but it's squatting is a more appropriate way, right? They hadn't thought about these things, and they hadn't actually gone and asked the actual users who were going to be using it. That blows my brain. Like, how are you going to design something and only test college students, or only test people who just have no input on what the product should be doing?
And I'm guessing they had the money to travel to different places, right?
Oh yeah, and they did. They took field trips. To the area, and they had like looked at, and they had kind of, as an afterthought, talked to different vendors in the area, because they realized at the end, we should probably make the manufacturing something that could be local. That's a good idea. I think that would have been like fundamental thing going in. Like, it can't be something that is involved in this like high trade network. It has to be something that can be local to support systemic growth and to support the local community. I think that's like the design aspect. That's like the kind of thinking that I would love to see enter into product design and tech design.
So almost forgot to ask you about something.
What?
But Doctor Who.
Yeah, Doctor Who.
What is Doctor Who?
You don't really?
I think I know what it is, but
Okay.
I just want to make sure.
It's a show. It's the longest running show, I think, in history. I mean, it's been on television since TV was black and white. And the Doctor is an alien. He's from Gallifrey. He has 2 hearts, and it's not always a he. When he dies, he regenerates into a new actor or a new doctor. And it's just wildly fun. It's goofy, it's silly. Sometimes it's not good.
And it's still on TV.
And it's still on TV. And sometimes it is good. Sometimes it's so bad it's good,
I know you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Like your joke's so corny, you gotta laugh at it.
There are themes that have been running like through the course of this TV show. Like there's these things called the Cybermen. They're the Daleks who want to exterminate everything, not just humans. There, and he travels the universe in this little blue box called the TARDIS. And the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. And so when people see it, they go into this little police box and then they're like, oh, and every single one of them eventually says, it's so much bigger on the inside. And it's just there's just so many inside jokes. And the doctor is like, it's like a maniacal Sherlock Holmes character. And I love those people, the kind of people who walk into a room and are just like, they're not paying attention to the social immediate dynamics of the room. They're like seeing the whole picture and being childlike, enthusiastic, and excited about it. There's one episode that I think is amazing. It's like, are you familiar with the myth of Sisyphus?
No.
The myth of Sisyphus is, I won't describe the whole thing, but it's the pushing the stone up to the top of the hill.
Okay, I am.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what that is. Yeah.
So there was an episode of The Doctor like that. And so the doctor manifests in this room. You think it's for the first time. And he is being chased by this phantom throughout this whole castle. And he ends up realizing that he's been here. He's been here a billion times before. And then as he's solving this puzzle, he gets to the last room and he sees this wall of diamond in front of him. And he realizes in that moment, before I get eaten by this phantom, I need to be eaten by the phantom, 1. And 2, I need to punch this diamond wall as many times as I can before I die. So he's like punching it 3 times. Billions and billions of years pass of him doing this one after another. And I love it because I think he finally escapes from this prison. And when he gets to the person, he says to them, like, let that person know, like, I took the long way around. And I really feel like it's the perfect metaphor for iterative, beautiful, methodical escape from the regimes and the design processes that we currently have. You just have to sacrifice and keep going, like little bitty bits at a time.
Yeah, hopefully you can do it in less than 1 billion years, though, right?
I know. Yeah, it would be nice.
maybe only 1 million years.
Yeah. But maybe it just takes one voice and that's all I can do. I think that's like a part of appreciating what you bring to the table. I might not solve something gigantic someday, even though I'd love to, but being a part of it is important. Sometimes people use the excuse, like I'm not going to vote because it doesn't count kind of thing. And I think that's an easy argument to fall into. I've fallen into it myself. If what I do doesn't matter, why am I doing it? But I think that the small things that we do collectively can make a change. We could be that tipping point in any realm, like, in voting or in a voice for ethics and tech. So my responsibility then is to represent myself and, maybe be that tipping point or maybe inspire someone else to be a tipping point.
So earlier I asked you about, what you're excited about future in tech.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a question for you. Talk about something that you think is going to happen, like hasn't happened yet, right? So example, I used to watch this show called Year Million on, I think it was National Geographic. Yeah. And talk about stuff going to happen like 1 million years from now. Like, it's like, talk about one thing they're talking about, they're going to be like, you're going to get a shot of nanobots and the nanobots are going to cure any disease. So if you have cancer, it's going to destroy cancer. Yeah. And talk about uplifting your consciousness and the robots to have virtual life, all that kind of stuff, just off the wall stuff, traveling and stuff. Yeah. What do you think is some off the wall futuristic stuff?
Sure. Did you ever read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World?
I think I did. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I did a long time ago, but I will never forget The Feelies, which was the movie experience. And I kind of have this now a little bit, but it was a movie experience where you sat down in the chair and you felt everything. So it wasn't just VR, it was like a sensorial experience. I think that neurobiology will tap into all the processes that our sense organs kind of take in to create this reality and this consciousness. And I think if we can biohack that and create technology that simulates, whether that be the voices that we hear in the head, whether that be the feeling of someone holding my hand, I think that would be, could you imagine like what that would feel like? I mean, there are all kinds of interesting implications, but I mean, just for people who maybe need exposure therapy to being hugged, there's all kinds of applications in that space. We just need to do research to tap into.
Yeah. Your men, one thing was they all had telepathy, which of course is actually a bad thing, right? Because whatever you thought, everyone knew what it was, right? Yeah. It was like kind of crazy, right? What did you say? You think of that be for real?
I think that they had didn't they just recently, it was somebody who's locked in, right? They had, I can't remember what the disease is, Parkinson's, where they're like locked into their bodies. They can't move. All they can do is move their eyes. And they had found a way to translate what the individual was saying based off eye movement.
I remember hearing that.
Note. Yeah. But the person who had done it had been debunked because they had not had the best research methodologies. But that's interesting.
So next question. Would you want to go 500 years in the future or 500 years in the past?
Do I get to retain everything I have if I go in the past?
Yeah.
I think I would want to go in the past first because we have these narratives about our past. For instance, childhood. You'll watch maybe TV shows about medieval time, and you'll see a kid playing with a horse or something. I don't think childhood was a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the narratives that I've been told about these constructs we have today were not the case 500 years ago. So I would love to have that perspective. Like, what was it then?
But 500 years ago, it's all the diseases. There's no technology.
I mean, like, maybe that's maybe they have like a different idioms that they use. Maybe there's like a different philosophy about how you navigate or interact with one another, which would be so difficult for us to see right now even through like a lens of 100 years, even like documentaries of the past century that are trying to tell us what it is. We wouldn't really know. Like going to Rome, wouldn't that
like
be?
Rome, yeah, I would love to do that. Roman Empire, it probably took like 2 weeks to get a message from Rome, like somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And I was like instantly.
And what do you do that whole time?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm a Roman soldier. I got to travel for 2 weeks on my horse to deliver this message through enemy territory.
I'll be back later.
Yeah.
Your life is imagine all the emails that we answer, right? Like you and I are communicating almost instantly via email. What if that took 2 weeks to orchestrate?
And a king sends a message, hey, I want to make peace. And when the message doesn't get there and something else happens, I guess those want peace. Let's go to war,
Yeah. I was just watching last night, we landed on the movie Emma. This is like a Jane Austen rendition of Emma. And it was really interesting to see these like this old story with all these like social complexities. And they're funny where humans, it's like Shakespeare, right? There's always been this like human element of confusion and timeliness and how they kind of orchestrate, but how they still apply to today. I think those things are still applicable. But
so if you go back 500 years in the past, it's like no tech, the diseases, different people. Then you go 500 years in the future. What if the war doesn't exist, right? Like 500 years in the future, like there's some kind of, Mad X,
What if
stuff.
It's the same? What if there's no technology then?
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what scares me about going into the future. I would go and I'm not going to be able to change.
What if everyone's like living in caves because you can't breathe the air, Or what if Elon Musk is successful and moved everyone to Mars, right? And you're here like by yourself. Like, like what?
That's why I kind of like Doctor Who, because Doctor Who travels through time and space. So he travels, or they travel into the future or into the past or into different planets, right? And sometimes the human companions he has, which change, they'll be in the future and they'll be like, what happened? And you can tell, I mean, the directors and the producers want them to have like a visceral, like, I feel loss, I feel grief. What happened to the human race? These kind of questions. And I think that would be really just existentially difficult to grapple with. What if it was bad?
Do you think there's intelligent life out there somewhere? Because it's been proven there's life out there. Of course, life can be like a microcosm, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's intelligent life out there?
I think there's intelligent life here. I think that we just don't always acknowledge it. And I think that just like our brains kind of operate differently, I think different species have different, oh my gosh, wait. Can I talk to you about whales?
Yeah, please.
Whales they do like these emotional emails to each other. And I
heard dolphins do the same thing, I think.
Gosh, I am so in love with this concept. Like, so if you and I are in a pack with this water bottle and this water bottle feels sad, this water bottle comes into our pack and like sends this emotional, like, I am sad. Then you and I also are sad. And we send back like, well, I'm actually kind of content right now. And you're like, well, I'm ecstatic. The complicated emotional expression that we're sharing as a group, back to that slime mold mentality, like you can all communicate these emotional complexities and make decisions as a group. I think there's something really beautiful there that we don't tap into, but maybe we could if we understood or had different systemic societal constructs in place.
Do you know who Lex Friedman is?
No.
So he has this podcast. He's like this big time AI
Dude.
data scientist guy has a podcast.
I think yeah.
He was he always wears a suit, you know, like super smart.
I just started listening to this podcast like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's really good. And so he was talking to someone about alien life and who and his thing was like the human race is like too overcome. I can't think of what he used. Like, why do we think they would contact us, right? Maybe they contact the ants or the dolphins. And the guy was like, well, we have other buildings and stuff, or maybe not based on buildings. Maybe, you know, they communicate with like dolphins or something else, right? Maybe they see us like the scourge of the earth, right?
Yeah.
You know,
or like maybe they've already been here, or maybe they just were like uninterested. Maybe I think that there's like a lot of anthropomorphizing that we do on what intelligent life could be. We imagine when we say intelligent life, for instance, I think initially when we were talking about the Turing test, right? Could a computer just be enough like a human and that would pass the test? Is having a sense of humor make us human? Like what makes us human exactly compared to like a machine emulating it or alien life? And so I just think it's when you boil it down, it's really difficult to pinpoint what makes us us. And when we're trying to like map that onto a universe of endless possibilities.
Yeah, because people like, you know, alien's gonna look like this stereotypical alien. It might look like octopus, might be a snake, it might be whatever, you know.
What if it was like discombobulated and had like was multiple creatures, right? Not connected.
Or it's just like a conscious, just thoughts.
Yeah. What if it, so there was a Doctor Who episode, telling you everything. There's a Doctor Who episode that had a conscious universe and it could take a shape of whatever it wanted. And it took the shape of a frog. Very Douglas Adams when I think about it, you know.
I mean, I think every day they're discovering thousands more planets, more universes, you know, like, is there edge? Is it like a globe? It's like, and like Mars is like so far away, but it's not, you know, in the big scheme of things.
I was like, I guess I was listening to Shortwave, or maybe it was Stuff You Should Know About Venus. I can't remember, but Venus was just like us. And there are a lot of planets out there that are just like us.
I mean, Mars is, we're now Mars have oceans. Then I watched this thing on National Geographic a while ago where they launched some kind of satellite to Pluto. It launched like 2003. It didn't get to like 2012, you know, 9 years later, right? Like, man, it's insane.
It's hard to hold enthusiasm for that over long term.
Yeah.
You know?
And like what happened is like, you know, you're lead engineer on this project, right?
Yeah.
And you retire in 2007. In 2012, it fails, it blows up. They come back and take your money from you, take away your pension. Like, what do they do, right? Like you failed, right? Hey, and then you failed, right?
You're done. That'd be really sad. This whole life, like you feel really good about what you've accomplished, and then come to find out you
made this one mathematical error.
Yeah. Oops.
One thing I found issue, I had no idea, like the Mars rover, I always thought, you know, it's like scientists build it, whatever. But actually like this regular craftsman builder, right? The science type what you do is like regular auto people builder, right? Of course they go through tests, you know, have to build a curriculum, but it's like have high school diplomas, GEDs, trade schools, and they're building like this multi-billion-dollar product, right? And I never thought about it. I thought it was like scientists doing it, right? Like PhD. No, it's like they're just, of course we're all regular people, like just screwdrivers and drills.
But you envision like high tech.
Maybe
it is high tech.
I think like somebody with an MIT degree, you know. But he's like, I got a GED, I got this. I mean, you know, I've been doing this. I've been working for NASA 10 years. You know, I built this, I built that. You know, of course, I'll be precise and you know all the kind of stuff. You know, and clean environment. I just blew my mind. Like, damn, can you imagine how cool that'd be? Like going, like you know, to your home. Yeah, like what do you do? Oh, I built NASA.
No bigs.
Right, yeah.
Like that would be great to tell grandma at Christmas. You know, what'd you do this year? Well,
you see that up there? That's all me.
I did that. I was just thinking about how I was listening to something about they had determined that the beginnings of life, sometimes people think it had to be like this perfect environment, right? And this soup, but they found that there are certain proteins when on balsamic glass. That's not balsamic. What is it? I'm not a geologist, but it's a type of like, I want to say it's like lava, like a type of glass that's created from volcanic activity. Somebody will probably correct me. But it's like creates this little perfect situation where proteins can fold themselves in just the right way to make kind of the foundations, the basic proteins, maybe not RNA or DNA, but I thought that was really neat. I think it's like really cool that people focus on this and then emulating those insights into technology, right? How can How can I mimic life? And I think that's bioengineering. There are so many bioengineers in the engineering school at UW. You run into them and they are passionate about what they're doing. It's cool.
I think people don't realize like there's all these worlds, right? There's worlds of physics, the world of math, the worlds of science, all different worlds, right? They're kind of intertwined, so to speak, right? Very, very interesting.
It is. It can go anywhere.
What's your thoughts on space travel? You get an email. We're looking for 100 volunteers to go to Mars.
Yeah, I'd go. I'd go just for the experience.
Yeah.
I've always been the kind of person that someone says, hey, this like weird experience is coming up. We have no idea how it's going to go. I'm like, yeah, like sign me up. Like, why not? Of course, like not factoring in children and these sorts of things. Right?
Your kids have to be grown, right?
Yeah, we're all going to go on this really risky mission. But I think personally, I'm a little disheartened about it. I feel like space travel, like,
to me, it should have happened by now, right?
Right.
Like when someone like 69. So I had an interview with this guy named Miguel his startup. They're like send like most NASA and SpaceX, they send these big ass satellites.
Yeah.
His company sends like really small satellites, right?
Yeah.
And I knew this, but I didn't. But like, of course, most people don't realize this, but there's more power on this than the programming to send the moon in 1969.
Wow.
And he also told me like all the tech for space rockets now, all the tech still 1970s tech. Nothing's been advanced, right? And there's so many missed opportunities. Like nothing was done to the 70s, 80s, you know, had a space shuttle, done with the moon, like all this lots of opportunity, right? To me, we should have been on Mars, right?
Yeah. It feels like it's like it takes too long, or I can't quite put my finger on it, but it just feels like we missed it. Like we had
the opportunity, right? We had real momentum.
Yeah.
Beat the Russians in the space race, sending people to the moon, doing this great stuff, you know.
And then we stopped.
Like just stop. That's like, okay, stop. Like, what are we doing, right? I think always gotta be pushing forward, I think, you know. It's
like what we also are living on the fumes and dreams of like sci-fi, beautiful, these shows that like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So in my brain, I'm like, if we're not in hyperdrive going to other galaxies, what are we doing? So my expectations are a little high, but that would be like the revelation of a lifetime to hear that we could suddenly do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what would be fun?
Yeah, like, you know, we're not going to go to Mars and have like a welcoming party for us, right?
Right.
Finally, humans, you're here. Finally, Earthlings, you're here. We've been waiting for you.
Right. Took long enough, friends. Yeah, I sometimes also kind of fall into that like existential, like it's all rocks.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, I own a lot of respect for all those rocks, and I recognize that there's a whole industry based on exploring that, but rocks don't always excite me. And maybe it'll tell us about our universe, but like, what do we use that for?
Yeah. What do we really care? What do we get out of like find out how the Earth was formed, right?
Yeah.
How does it affect the day-to-day life of everyone, right?
And sometimes it can. Sometimes technology is informed by those kind of things. And I just don't. I'm curious. I'm open to hearing how all of that's going to help us live better lives.
Yeah, but like you bring a good point. So many people use tech, have no idea it works, what's it for, you know, this, oh, here's my phone. Or they're like, I'm going to watch this TV show, this comedian made a joke, he was on the airplane, and the guy next to him like cussing out, God damn it, my internet doesn't work. He was like, dude, can you give us a second to come from space? Can you be patient 1 or 2 seconds? It's going to space, coming back. Just calm down. Your internet will work, right?
Yeah. Oh. There was a really cool book. Actually, I have it. It's called Swipe to Unlock. And I really wish I had found it when I had just started kind of learning about building websites and technology, because I came from nothing. I had no idea any of it. And this book, it's for people who are interested in product management, so they can like kind of scale up and get like the high level of all these different tech. And it is a great primer. It covers Facebook algorithms. It covers how does Google search work. It covered cloud computing. So like AWS and like the business side of all of that. Highly recommend that for anybody that's interested in like, if the concept of coding and tech seems like a really big wall, this book is really good to just peruse through.
People don't realize you don't have to be a genius to learn how to code, right? It's not, you know, it's not rocket science, right?
It's why kids learn.
It's like repetitive, and another thing like by tech, anyone from 6 to 99 can learn it.
You just have to know the mental model for it, and sometimes that's the difficult part. If you grow up in a space where you're not you don't have a mental model that you can, appropriately create the metaphors to understand a concept, you're going to fail. This is why clean code is important. This is why building and explaining technology in a, way that is communicable to other people is key to being able to hire people and train people.
So this guy I follow on YouTube, right? Every once in a while, I'm subscribed to this channel.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, 75 years old, he learned Python at 70. So every week he does like new Python experiment. For like 5 years, he does a new Python experiment. Like, yeah, it's so cool, right? The stuff he builds, the stuff like, yeah.
Yeah. I have an aunt. She is 80. Her name is Jenny Aldridge Walker. And she's like my maternal figure. When she like skydived at 70. She was all about like learning. She's an actress. She's writing plays. She is constantly, she's more involved in things than I am at 80 years old, right? And I just think that kind of drive, that kind of openness. I think she got a degree when she was 65 because that's when it's free. You can go back to school for free after like a certain age in at least Florida. What like a wonderful mentality. And it kind of like ties into this lifetime learning thing. Like when you hit 30 and maybe you have a degree, you're not done.
Yeah.
You should, and you shouldn't just be going to like, I went to this course or I did this Udemy thing because I got to keep learning. I feel like stepping back, taking a sabbatical, like advocating for yourself. Like I need to go. I knew somebody that went to Australia once for 6 months, told their employer, like, you want me to stick around? I need to go do this because I need to go research these things. And the employer was like, all right. And I think that we need that. It helps our brains. It helps us become better humans.
Yeah. One thing I try to do, I don't do it as enough. Like I try my best, like once a week, like, how I always say, listen to podcasts and all this external stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
I try once a week, like for at least 30 minutes, like have nothing on. That's like empty brain, right?
Yeah.
Because even anytime, all my time ideas coming through, creativity, nothing, just thoughts come in,
Yeah. We do walking every day at 4:00. We live next to a school and we walk around their what do you call it? The
track.
Yeah. They have like that rubber for track and field. And it's awesome. Because we're together. So we're not really like on our phones and we're not listening to anything because we're together. We have our dog and we're just walking around and we're quiet because we're comfortable with our quiet. But sometimes things come up and you're like, I want to talk about this or I want to explore this idea. It's a really great way to connect. It's a really great way to like promote diffuse thinking. Love it. Love walking.
I might have asked you before, but I don't think I did. What's some did I ask you what kind of future tech you're interested in?
Yeah.
So what future tech I want is like, the Matrix where you put the thing in you. That'd be so cool, right?
You think that would hurt so much?
It would, but man, all the stuff you'll learn. Like I want to learn how to code instantly.
Just download it.
I want to learn how to box. I want to learn, whatever. I want to learn how to fly. I want to build a nuclear whatever, right?
Ooh, so right now you have the ability to go online, and I'm just going to use it as a metaphor.
Okay.
You can go online and you can buy almost anything.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
You have that feeling where like, I'm going to buy this thing and it's going to be a part of my identity and I'm going to change, right? So you go and you buy the thing and it arrives and you're like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what that would do. I feel like I would be like, I'm going to learn this.
But then it's so easy and accessible.
Yeah.
Just like, like how many people that live in Seattle go to the Space Needle, right?
Right.
Like how many people live in New York City go to the Empire State Building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hard to no one, right?
Like maybe I would like, I'm going to be a master knitter. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, well, done, but I never knit.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. But what would be your first tech that you would, or the first thing that you would learn?
Oh man, probably how to code.
You don't know how to code?
Yeah.
Oh.
Probably how to code. Yeah.
You can learn how to code. You can totally do it.
Yeah, but 1 second versus.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like, I would love to play guitar, how to draw, paint,
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff,
That would be an interesting, like, how would that work? Because the music, what you learn in music is kind of how to read the music or how to just translate the music into being in an instrument. And then it's muscle memory of how to play it over and over again. Like, there's 2 parts to it. And then you let go and it just does it on its own. So how could we convince the muscles to have that memory? That's an interesting question.
Another interest too, like, how many people like make themselves successful just with like muscle memory, like doing it over and over again. Like I follow this young lady on TikTok and Instagram. I think her name is Blue the Tiger, right? She's a female guitarist, been playing guitar since like 7 years old. she's like 25, 26 now. She's been a tour over the world. She's been on Saturday Night Live. Just all these different things, right?
What a life.
And she's been playing guitar at 7 years old. So like she says, like, I've always known I'm a guitar player at 7 years old. And she's living her life, right? She's like traveling. She's been a guest guitarist, like some big time bands. Yeah, she's only 24 years old, right?
My youngest, it's scary for us as parents. He just recently told me when he was younger, he wanted to be the person that hands out samples at Costco, because he just thinks there's magic there.
Yeah.
And then it slowly became like, I want to be a chef and I want to be an artist. And I thought, like, when he first said these things, all right, but he keeps saying it and he keeps making things.
Well, it was true. Like a lot of like successful people, they knew what they wanted for a young time, right? Like Kobe Bryant, he knew he wanted to be a best player at the age of 6, right?
That's beautiful.
You know, Michael Jackson knew he wanted to be a singer. Like a lot of, like, we'll say, like, you know, geniuses or savants, like really, really good people, they knew from a long time, you know. What's the rule that Malcolm Gladwell said? 10,000 hours or, you know, hone your craft, whatever. I think it's true to that, you know.
Speaking to that, there was an individual who recently sent me, because we were talking about how we wanted to design a website and for the computer science club, and who were we serving and what did they need? And one of the individuals said, you know, there's this myth that you discover what it is you're good at. And that's like, it stops people, because it could be, and this is a fair truth, you might not be good at anything. You might be good at maybe like a fundamental thing. Like, I'm really good at overthinking what I'm doing. And that translates into problem solving, right? Or being reflective. But anyway, the idea, you're just waiting around with your hands in your pocket, like, I'm going to discover it someday. But what you really should be doing is that you're working towards something.
Yeah, should be experimenting.
Yeah.
Like doing different things.
And like keeping at it. So even like you might be dabbling in all these things and you might feel like, I'm not good at any of these things. Just pick one and just do it.
Like, well, like, so I can't think of the name, but back in the Renaissance, there's like the two famous musicians, like two composers, the husband and wife, great composers.
Sure. Because there's my son is really talented with music, and I also felt very inclined towards music when I was younger. I mean, I didn't do anything with it other than like self-soothing.
Yeah.
But I noticed the same like mental approach to instruments. You know, you see these things in your kids, and they're always different. Like the chef, the chef doesn't have a musical inclination at all. So where do they get them from? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just funny. Like, and like, you might be the greatest guitar player ever, but you never seen a guitar. Like, you just don't know, right?
Yeah,
just experiment.
But if you, again, that's like part of discovering. Like, you wouldn't just be amazing. You would need to work at it. And so, with the thought that I like coming from a space of I'm not good at anything. I'm not good at coding. I'm not good at any of it. And then that kind of sets you free. I'm not waiting to discover anything. I can just decide I'm going to start opening jars, and I'm going to be really good at opening jars by the time I'm 90. I'll be an expert. I'll be the best in the world at opening jars. And I think it's just having like that dedication and that slow build. And that's another good piece of advice for anybody who wants to get into tech, because people might think I'm not good at configuring my email. I would be horrible at tech. I hear that all the time. I'm terrible with tech. I know nothing about it. You just need to like do a thing, and then the next day do another thing. I don't know everything about tech. I've met senior engineers who don't know how to do things. They Google as much as I do about any topic. So I think it's just about letting go of this idea of finding your perfect thing and just inching through the world. You'll be good at it eventually, you know?
Yeah, but some people I think are natural stuff, like my son, right? Like if you were to say today, like if you could, like, if you like, there's nothing on that label, right? No ingredients, whatever. Yeah. He could taste it and tell exactly what the ingredients were.
Nice ability.
Like he'll like, one time we were with my cousin in San Antonio, and she said, "Hey, can you taste this?" He tasted it. He said it needs this. It was something off the wall, right? Like something like you never put in spaghetti sauce, right? Are you sure? He said, "Just try it." It was like freaking perfect, right? Yeah, he just had the talent.
He would be good at wine tasting. There's like a whole thing in that world. They get to. I had a friend who, I can't think of what the name is right now. You go through a school and you get a ring or something, and then you can like be a wine spot for people. But you have to know like you taste the dirt, you know, and you have to like know like, oh, I can tell that this is off the banks of so and so, right?
Yeah,
crazy. crazy.
So Renee, is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I've had a really good conversation. I think it just feels natural.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I thought Renee had been like a dozens and dozens of podcasts,
Yeah.
but this is actually her very first podcast.
Yeah.
So I thought, I don't know why I thought you were like dozens of them before.
That's okay. I mean, with all the events, I think that we spend a lot of time talking with people online, and I do a lot of maybe public speaking, but never a podcast.
Yeah, hope you had enjoyed the experience.
I have. It's been fun.
It's a lot of fun, ain't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Can you share your social media so people can reach out to you?
Sure. On LinkedIn, I think it's, linkedin.com/in/Amanda René Capella. And my Twitter handle is René Capella. On Reddit, you can find me as René Capella. I bear my full name everywhere. I have no shame.
And to our listeners, we have our social media on the show notes. You can find the show notes at www.cabinetshbla.com. Be sure to share this episode with your friends and your network. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the Jason Cabinets Experience. So let's talk about Reddit real fast.
Yeah.
So Reddit, are you on there a lot?
I'll say I'm on certain pieces of Reddit.
I've never really been on. I just heard the stuff, right? Like Reddit's like another cesspool. Like there's all these sub communities, like these dark places, and evilness, and don't go there if you're not mentally strong, because you're gonna get embarrassed and torn down and all the kind of stuff. Is it really that bad, or is it
it can be? You need to be. I think with anything, you need to know what neighborhoods you're going into. And
so you're saying you probably will go in Southside Chicago at 3 a.m, right?
Probably not. But I would go into. So I really love the book, The Kingkiller Chronicles, The Name of the Wind, and Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. The third, Doors of Stone, is going to come out in the future. But I visit that subreddit all the time to talk about theories, because it's an amazing book. And sometime I'll send you a link for it. But
how about Quora? Do you own Quora any?
No.
So you're a Reddit person?
Yeah, Reddit. Just Reddit. I mean, sometimes I go on Quora. I think I've answered one question about coffee, caffeine withdrawal, that had some likes. 36 people have been like, yes, this is really helpful. But I've never felt inclined to answer more questions or.
So you're more active on Reddit.
Yeah, and I've even stopped that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other social media do you like to be on? What's your
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is the one.
But mainly because I think that you could find amazing people on LinkedIn, and then you can start really interesting conversations. But generally, I don't do social media because I get sucked in, right? And I feel it, and then I lose. It feels like I don't have control. And so I don't do Facebook. My family is on there. So I try to catch up occasionally. But really, I think.
Yeah, I haven't posted on Facebook for a while. I'll still go once a day to see what's going on, but I haven't posted there for a while.
Right. And I remember when we were doing our Google Developer Student Club, they were like, hey, make sure you have a Facebook page. Don't worry, you don't have to do anything with it. It's just there because you need to have a presence. And I was like, wow, what does that say about social media and how you're building a brand and where you put yourself,
Yeah, it could definitely be overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
All the pressures, and I'm really, somebody put a video don't believe anything on social media. There's a picture of this guy on vacation, but it's this fake picture, I'm in the backyard with a fake thing on,
Yeah. It's not, it's
it's not real life.
How are you supposed to be authentic in a space where maybe other people are not being authentic, and where you've read the research and you understand that people look at your content and might feel badly about themselves.
Yeah.
So
everyone's this happy life, happy go lucky.
Yeah.
No one really says, oh man, last month my life's been shit. I failed at this. I lost a job, blah, blah, blah,
Sometimes there are really cool viral posts I like that are just real. And I think that those real posts also kind of feed into this desire to, it's like a desire for trauma. It's people really want to keep sharing trauma, and they think that that's helpful. And it's just not. Social media. Did you know Twitter was based off of something called Text Mob?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I love that Text Mob was this we're going to help activists communicate. And it's going to have this like cool social justice movement.
I mean, the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
All Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's a really cool tool for mass communication, but can also be misused.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one example of like, yes, no. And I don't know how you separate that without odd regulations and things that don't feel right.
Is it free speech? Is it not,
Right.
or is a private company is too big? Is public,
Well, it's a question about free will, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we actually have free will about the things that we say. I would love to say that everything I put together is like I'm actively choosing.
There's just so many influences.
Right. And I think that helps me question what I do when I'm interacting on the internet. And there's that book called Subliminal, where you're so just subconsciously told things. There was a thought experiment I was recently engaged in about what if we had like politicians that were voted in by, or just random like jury selection, so you get random politicians in there from all walks of life, just trying to do politics. And I was really kind of against it because I felt it would you would immediately have companies and interests finding subversive ways to influence this. You can't escape it, the culture machine eats us all.
No doubt. One thing about the generation now, I mean, they're so tech advanced, right? I mean, like my generation, dial-up phones, AOL, the transition, the pings, having like text one letter at a time, on the keyboard, if someone called, you had no idea who it was until you answer the phone, right?
You had to risk it until caller ID.
Yeah.
And you could call people back, but you could block your caller ID.
Yeah. Or remember, you want to know how hot it was? You had to call this phone number for the time and temperature.
I had to get my movie times. I had to call a phone number to get movie times at the local cinema. And you had to wait for your movie. You couldn't just choose your movie.
I mean, the future, you might be born and have a chip installed in you, right? With
there.
all the words information since the beginning of time in your chip, so you know everything, right?
You just access it.
Yeah.
Through your fingers.
Yeah.
I think that AR with the glasses, I've always wanted to try those glasses. I think it's given a lot of people headaches, and I would probably hate that. But the concept of being able to have things in your environment, and to access it all. Doctor Who wears sunglasses. Peter Capaldi's character. Yeah. You would like it.
I'm have to check it out. It's crazy. It's been on since the 50s.
Yeah. He has a sonic screwdriver.
What channel does it come on? Like
BBC.
Oh, BBC. Okay.
But you can access it on Amazon Prime.
Okay, nice. So I asked you before about women in tech, advice for them. What advice do you have just like regular junior developers trying to find a job? Like right out of college, right out of coding academy. So one thing I think a lot of developers get wrong, junior developers, they complain all the time. It says I need 2 years experience. I got out of college. Well, they expect you to like have an internship, have something, or at least 2 years of work on GitHub. Doesn't actually mean you have to have a job for 2 years, but you got to be able to translate the experience. I think a lot of them get that wrong.
A lot of them want to fit the job description perfectly, and they're not going to.
No.
If you fit like 60% of it, dive into it, apply, make a case for yourself. But also, I think that what's really, really important is some people think I need to do internships in order to get a job. And sometimes internships are not accessible because maybe you have children, right? Maybe you can't travel the world and do all these things because of whatever constraint in your life. You can do something free, like the Google Developer Student Club. You could develop a community, show that you have leadership, show that you can make projects, show that you can do something from
Take a free Python course on whatever.
And
go to meetups
and have a portfolio. And
follow tech people.
The moment that you start actively participating in these kinds of things, you're going to create all the answers to those behavioral questions that come up. You had to design a database. If either you do it on your own time or you do it for an employer, there's going to be a little difference there about constraints. But if you're good, you would have had constraints that you're already working with in your own personal project that you would be able to convey to that interviewee. So, it's not about waiting until you graduate. There was somebody recently who was like, I'm not going to do LinkedIn. Why not? I'm not looking for a job.
You're missing the point.
You need to hop on there now. I actually considered having a LinkedIn for my children at some point, not yet, but there's going to be a point where I'm going to want to teach them. You need to have a presence that's public, and it needs to be accessible, and people need to be able to see who you are.
So for my tech startup, right? So a few months ago, I took part in, what Y Combinator is? So it's like this, it's an accelerator, right? Where like they invest in startups. So I was thinking of startup school. I took startup school, like an 8-week course, daily updates. It's like a forum, right? And so this lady, Teddy Cobb, one of theirs, her startup is called Temporal. They give you internships for your startup, right? But they're high school students, right? And so it is all these high school students, so that they're trying to get like MIT, Stanford, all these high advanced schools, like having like the SATs, how to do interviews, right? And part of that, get an internship, right? So I have like 12 of them working for me this summer, right? 12 high school students, right? And I made them all get on LinkedIn, right? Like I told them how to set it up, what you need it for. Like, I'm too young for this, know this. I told them, here's the people I know. Like one person, he wants to be like an author, right? Here's all my people I follow author, right? Tell them you know me and connect with them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do that for him.
Well, I met you through LinkedIn. I've met people at Google through LinkedIn. I've had mentorships through LinkedIn, and it's all because maybe they posted something that resonated,
Yeah.
and you have like the courage to direct message them and be like, hey, I really like that. And being specific, it doesn't,
Yeah.
there's like this critique about networking being inauthentic. It doesn't have to be
No.
inauthentic. It can be really genuine and like, wow, I really love that you are being able to put yourself out on your LinkedIn page so transparently with whatever you care about, XYZ. I want to know more about that. And how about we go have coffee? And then all of a sudden that person knows a person who
Yeah.
knows a person. And then
That
you have a
network, yeah.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. From my experience, like 9% of people on LinkedIn like want to help you out, do
Yeah.
stuff. Of course, there's the 10% like, dude, what are you doing? Like I was telling someone earlier today, I was talking to like every day I get at least one LinkedIn message from a business coach. Hey, Jason, what are you doing? If you join my webinar, I'll increase your revenue by 20,000%, blah, 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 blah. And he's like a finance coach or like something not related to what I'm doing, right? Or he's like, yeah, it's like ridiculous.
It's like obvious that they're mass sending out emails.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the worst one recently, it was hard to tell whether it was personal or not. And usually I know that it's not, but this one was really good. And I communicated that to them. I said, look, this sounds really genuine, but I honestly can't tell whether you're just trying to exploit me because I'm here on LinkedIn or if like you're just really asking me questions. So if you could let me know, that would be great. And they never talk to me ever again.
Yeah. I mean, automation is good as bad. Like you have like 10,000 people. How are you going to send an individual message? Right. One, you can't do that, right?
Right. There was,
but then you can't be like, like too spammy, I guess,
That right. Like there was for the Google Developer Student Club, we were doing a global event and I needed to get all of the other, this was my plan. I wanted to get all the other Google Developer Student Clubs who have their own websites and communities. I needed all of them to promote my event. And you could post it in a main channel and you know who's going to respond to it? 3 people are going to thumbs up it. But in order to get engagement, you directly contact, and I did 170 of these different people from across the United States and Canada. And like maybe 70% responded, but that is a huge return on investment of time.
I mean, Spatial is always better to do one-on-one versus automation. This thing that you're trying to reach 10,000 people, like unless you like hire VAs or something like that, it's painstakingly painful.
Like, it's frustrating if you want to, and then maybe that's an indication that sometimes our market should be smaller. Like I understand that there's a competitive market to be national and to be big, but what if we all just kept focusing on like our small spaces and had really impact and engagement in that space? Is that sustainable? I don't know the answer to it.
It's tough, unless you learn how to code AI and do your LinkedIn messaging for you from AI robot,
There was somebody who did that. They had a really cool like happy birthday message to me. And I was like, man, that was so cool. And I remember the person saying like, haha, what a good bot. Like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, LinkedIn is good too. I like to say like I love it and I hate it, right?
Right. It's done almost nothing but good things for me. And I think it's
same here. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a good way to find maybe who you are. When I see certain messages, I've also learned a lot of control. If I see something political, like I think LinkedIn has taught me, because it's such a professional space, there's a very fine line.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just over the years I just understand, like, don't engage that. Maybe just read it, get involved, maybe get emotional response out of it personally. But this
I do think some people, of course, you want, my thing is like, you don't like to scroll, but some people like to think too personal. Like I know sometimes people will put like, yesterday my blank died, I'm feeling bad today. Like, shouldn't you be like taking care of something, right? Like, why are you on LinkedIn posting about this? Like your wife, your dad, whatever died. Like, shouldn't you be like, of course, maybe it's the way like, grieve or whatever, so you don't know, but it's just always like wonder about that, right?
Yeah. Well, there's so many different, it's like a portfolio of your brand, here's my personal life, here's my family life, here's, and on LinkedIn, it's my professional life. And I think that some of us, myself included, put so much effort into one space, like, 'cause I don't have other ones. How do you show people that other side of you?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is. Mine is just private, but I've seen a lot of people be like their weight loss journeys on LinkedIn. And you're like, I mean, I am rooting for you and that is great, but
just scroll.
Yeah.
Like 2 examples. I have a person I follow. She's like a recruiter. She's giving recruiting advice. She's like their everyday posting comments, real positive. She'd have posted a couple of days ago, like, hey, you know, my brother died. I'm gonna be off the platform for like 2 weeks, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other one, this happened a long time ago. This young lady, it's like 2-minute video. It was her getting out of the shower with a bath towel on, playing hide and go seek with the dog, right?
Hmm.
And people were like blasting, like, what is this craziness? Someone said, no, it's not craziness. It's showing her personality.
Mhm.
So her future job would say, hey, this is her personality. Do you want her or not, right? Man, that kind of makes sense. I never thought about it like that, you know?
But if you're researching an employee, and to be very clear, I've never done that. I've heard people doing it, but I've never like gone on and been like, who is this person on? So I probably should.
Mhm.
But if you're doing that, you're going to come up with Facebook. You're going to come
Yeah.
up with all these other things that have over a decade worth of information on you. And I think in my mind, if I keep it compartmentalized, if people are only interested in, you know, I don't know, that's an interesting thing to think about, especially for self-promotion. And again, self-promotion is not for power. It's not for anything other than how do you, in this current market, make sure that you are a voice in a crowd of people. And I think it's through things like this. I think it's through LinkedIn. I think it's through doing blogs, oddly, like publishing on like Medium or something. And I don't know what else, if I had the magic formula. Yeah.
I'm just glad there was no social media back in my day.
We didn't have any either. I remember MySpace.
Yeah, I remember that
one. And you could customize your MySpace. I remember thinking I was like amazing when I was able to like update my background to MySpace. When we had AOL.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Yahoo Messenger, I think, was a thing. But what it did is it opened up, we think about now, you were talking to your most recent guest about Discord and building a Discord community and how it's a lot like, it's kind of nostalgic. And the individuals, the older individuals like myself, you know, the 30 and 40-year-olds who come in are like, this is a mess. I've heard it a million times. And I'm like, well, yeah, the name, right? It's
it's in the name, right?
Right. It's right there. But you just have to remind them, like, just remember those forums that we were in. Remember the ASL and the different acronyms that we used. Same concept, just dark mode and dive in.
Yeah.
And you're going to get lost in it. It's going to be fine. There was a faculty member who like refused to go on our Discord for a long time. That's where his students were. They didn't want to participate in his online forum that he had on the student stuff.
You got to go.
They were all on
you have to go to where the community is at.
Exactly. He refused to it first. He's like, there's no way to organize this. And I was like, you just have to be present. You can't be asynchronous. You have to be like in the flow, in the current with them. Do that for an hour and you're fine. You can leave and come back on your own terms. That's how Discord works. If you wanted to have like an email system, good luck, but it's a little different. And there's a place for synchronous and asynchronous interaction.
But it's funny how like some teams like change, but don't change, right? Kind of like the current generation, they got off for like drinking White Claws, right? But back in the day, everyone drank Zimas, right?
Yes.
I mean, what's the difference between Zimas or White Claws? It's technically the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. White Claws, Zima.
Those tall, cute, skinny cans.
Yeah.
Right? They were based on Red Bulls, maybe, and so it's just that nostalgic. Gosh, I wonder what our kids like will end up. At least the youngest generation right now. I think about this all the time. What are you going to be into in a decade? Did you experience that? Like, when your kids finally got into like their later teens, did you have
the stuff I've never imagined they would do, right?
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And like, you know, like when you growing up my age, like parents like quit playing that video game, get out. You know, nowadays like you make like millions of dollars playing esports or video games. Like you're not going outside today. Get your butt back in your chair and you're in fact that video game, right?
I love that meme where it's like, don't be on your computer all day, and then it's that cute puppet that's like, but engineered. You make so much money. I love that this concept of we used to think reading was really bad, right? And now there was video games. I don't know about you, but I played a lot of Zelda and a lot of Mario. I played a lot of Nintendo when I was little, and now what is it? I guess it's still video games.
Video games, Fortnite is the big one, I think.
Yeah. But these video games are different. They're more subscription based or more, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. Like nowadays, like you have to play for the console, you get one game, you have to play like the subscription models and you have to like upcharge to get different things. Yeah. It's almost like a scheme nowadays.
Roblox. Sorry. Have you heard about Roblox?
Yeah.
So I found I wouldn't put money into it, but I know a few other parents who at first they trickle a couple dollars in, and then they just find that
And
they
before you know,
keep-
it's part of your family budget. A car.
Yes.
I got to pay electric bill, Roblox.
I need to pay for my server for Minecraft.
Yeah.
I need to pay for my server for Arc. I need Roblox bucks, and just like pick your flavor of video game that your kids need paid for. And kids want it. They think it's like everybody else is getting it. I also want it. Man, my parents never. Maybe they would have. Okay.
Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so we're coming into our talk. This has been a great conversation. Can you give us any advice or wisdom or anything you want to talk about?
I think as far as advice is concerned, just something I want to impart to the world is not that you just have to let go and understand that what other people think of you, it just is not your concern, and that you need to just push forward. You need to be empathetic. You need to be concerning for other individuals' interests. Check in often, but ultimately you can't control it. And I think that's something we try to grapple with social media and with our personal brand. We want to control people's thoughts of us, but you gotta let it go. Just be yourself.
Amanda, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.